The 2022 Intelligent Money British GT season is nearly at its conclusion. 8 rounds totalling 13 hours of racing have brought us to this point, and now only one race remains. It's time for the Donington Decider. As is tradition, it all started on Easter weekend at Alton Park, where we were treated to an outstanding opening race around the Cheshire Parkland circuit. Sean Ball started his Audi from pole, but it was Richard Neary who leapt into the lead after the first few corners, while Alex Maliakin bounced over the grass behind them. It would be an eventful race for Maliakin, whose race ended in the barriers, but not before contact with John Ferguson, sending the Mercedes AMG to a spin. The Gt4 battling has been relentless all season, and the parity between cars was evident right from the off, and allowed for some great side-by-side action. It was when the two classes met on track that things really kicked off. Richard Neary and Graham Davidson tangled whilst debating the lead in traffic, sending the latter into a spectacular collision with the tyre barriers, rocking RJN squad despondent. A potential race win had gone. The battle at the front in the second half of the race was between Adam Carroll and Jules Gounon, a real fight for the ages, with the Audi driver coming out on top to claim the first victory of 2022. It was Audi victorious in GT4 as well, Williams and Williamson and Sennan Fielding kicking off their season with the victory. Race number 2 started in dry conditions but under leaden skies as that typical UK Easter weather threatened to intervene. At the start, Jules Gounon this time got the better of Adam Carroll and led into turn 1, whilst Phil Keen's mid-grid starting order would unfortunately deliver him with some problems. Contact from the two Seas Mercedes at turn 1, then became even bigger contact from the Bentley at turn 2, around went the Lamborghini, and several others took to the grass to avoid contact. Sadly, contact couldn't be avoided in the GT4 battle between the Ginetta and the McLaren. The Paddock Motorsport McLaren off into the barriers heavily and out of the race. Then as the pit lane window opened, so too did the heavens. Rain started to pour, the track conditions became treacherous, and several cars threw themselves at the scenery. With barrier damage and worsening conditions, the red flags were thrown. When the race restarted, it was minus the Enduro McLaren, which pulled over with a mechanical issue, but it was Ian Loggie who came home to win the race, his first win of the season. Paddock Motorsport initially thought they had it, but a post-race appeal reversed that order. In GT4, Steller was victorious for the second time that day. Then on to the big one, the 3-hour Silverstone 500, a huge grid of cars doing battle around the home of British motorsport. Unfortunately, some of the early battling got a bit too rough as 3 Mercedes managed to tangle down at the club part of the circuit. Ian Loggie involved in that, so too the 2 Seas Mercedes. An early change for the lead led to contact between the Red Line and Barwell Lamborghinis. Red Line later penalised, whilst in GT4 the Toyota suffered a puncture after some contact of its own. That became a bit of a theme as well, the Balf Audi in trouble, but it was Barwell who just held on to claim their first victory of the season, with Newbridge victorious in GT4. The first of 2 visits to Donington Park saw a race utterly dominated by Enduro Motorsport, starting from pole position. There was contact for the second race this year between the Assetto Ginetta and Paddock Motorsport GT4 McLaren, with damage done to both cars. Within the GT4 ranks, though, it was the Academy Mustang that emerged as the mid-race favourite. Sandy Mitchell's stint lasted only a corner before contact with the Team Parker Porsche sent the Lambo into the gravel, but Marcus Clutton and Morgan Tillbrook claimed their first victory by an enormous amount. In GT4, Academy Motorsport victorious, again claiming their first win of the year. Next up was the second doubleheader of the season at sunny Snetterton. 2 one-hour races that were both dramatic from the very start to the very end. It was the Ram Racing car of Ian Loggie that started from pole position. Contact once again for the Assetto Ginetta, this time with the GT3 car sent them off the road, while GT4 cars were driving into each other. Contact sending the Academy Mustang off when it was in a race-winning position. Victory once again, though, for Ram Racing, who were looking strong. Race number 2 saw a slightly different look to the front of the grid. Contact at turn 1, though, sending Marcus Clutton off. This one of many incidents that would ultimately make them outsiders for the championship. There was then further contact with the 76 McLaren. Not a good day for Enduro. GT4, though, it was a good day for Century Motorsport. Jack Rounds and Will Burns finally breaking through to claim their first victory of the season after a great battle with Newbridge. It was 2 Seas Motorsport who won in GT3, though. John Ferguson claiming his first victory in the championship after a brilliant defensive drive, with Century Motorsport on top yet again in GT4. The Championship's annual trip to Spa provided us with some of the best racing of the season, particularly in the first hour of the race. Barwell Motorsport had the pole position, but it was Fox Motorsport who established themselves as the early race leaders after a great stint for Nick Halstead. Contact for Morgan Tillbrook sent him into a spin exiting the chicane with not lots of time lost, whilst in Gt4 it was the Toyota looking strong, quite strong enough though to keep the Team Parker Porsche at bay, whilst Team Brit were also on course for a good result. Nick Halstead and Jamie Stanley, though, claimed a breakthrough victory for Fox Motorsport in Gt3, with the Gt4 win going for the second time to R Racing. The penultimate round of the championship saw us visit the majestic Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit, and it provided a thrilling race. There was contact between Ian Loggie and his championship rival Adam Balon in the early stages. There was also more drama for the Gt4 Paddock McLaren, which has suffered a torrid season. Sam Neary was defending his lead valiantly at the end of the race from a charging Marcus Clutton. It looked like the Nearys were on course for another victory, but with a lap to go, a fuel pump failure saw them lose the lead, and it was Enduro who came through to take the race victory. The win for Enduro kept their championship hopes alive coming to the finale, whilst in Gt4 it was Newbridge Motorsport on top to bring the championship lead to Donington. Let's take a look then at the title contenders. In Gt3, there are 4 teams in the running, including James Cottingham and Lewis Williamson. They are chasing the championship leader, Ian Loggie.
Yeah, I'm quite relaxed about it. I think we've been doing a good job the whole season, so we've just got to keep doing what we've been doing. We don't need to win, but we'll be giving it our best shot.
Enduro Motorsport's Marcus Clutton and Morgan Tillbrook have an outside shot at the title this weekend. They've won twice this year, including on our previous visit to Donington. More likely to challenge are Adam Balon and Sandy Mitchell.
Yeah, slightly different to 2020. We're going in P2 in the championship, but it's still all to play for. If we win the race and Ian's outside the top 5, then yeah, we can still win the championship.
2 wins this year have given Darren Turner and Matt Topham a slender championship lead in Gt4.
It's always nice to come here with a lead. We didn't expect to win at Brands Hatch and come here with a lead, so there's a bit of pressure, but see how it goes.
Much like Newbridge, there have been 2 wins this year for Sennan Fielding and Richard Williams in the Steller Motorsport Audi, who won both of the season opening races at Upton Park. There have also been 2 wins for the R Racing youngsters Josh Miller and Jamie Day, who sit third, arriving at Donington.
It's been a surprise massively. Didn't really expect much coming into my debut season in GT. Yeah, we're just taking it almost as a learning year, first year, and yeah, surprised myself with 2 wins now, at second place in a load of pole positions.
So here we go again. Another season of Intelligent Money British GT Championship racing boils down to the final round. Both the GT3 and GT4 championships hanging in the balance. A topsy-turvy qualifying session yesterday has delivered a very intriguing grid for the 2-hour race today, with championship contenders lining up an awful lot further back than they would like. So far today, thankfully, no weather intervening as it did yesterday afternoon. A dry circuit after some overnight rain. Track temperature in the mid-teens, the air temperature a little bit lower than that, but it is a lovely autumn's day here, a big crowd on hand, and everyone eager to see what is going to happen in this final chapter of the 2022 season. It's a great grid of cars, some fantastic names up and down the grid, not just sat in the cars either. The British GT Championship these days brings in some pretty high-profile supporters, and Bryn Lucas, I believe, our pit lane reporter, is able to catch up with one of them now.
Yes, indeed. High profile indeed. Ainsley Harriott joins us once again. We caught up with you at Alton Park and it didn't go completely well for the team. And it's not been the easiest time for car number 9, has it, this season?
Nah, we've struggled a little bit and Chris had a few accidents, but it's how you perform after that. You know, you learn a lot more. It's like in any sport, you learn when things don't go right, don't go your way. And for him to come out, qualified third this year, I mean, he really is up for it. Already we're looking forward to next season. We're talking about a new car, on with BMW. Century Motorsport has done a wonderful job. And it's about the sponsorship. It's about getting people behind you. People know, everybody knows at home, I'm looking at them, because without sponsorship, we don't have a race.
And your name's plastered all over that car, and hopefully it's going to be plastered all over it next season too.
I might even be sending you a few packets. No, yeah, I'm hoping so. I love it. I love the team. I love what they're doing. I love the determination. Yeah, we've had some setbacks, but you know what? As I say, if we can keep going, look, they're there, everyone's passionate. Isn't it exciting, guys? Can you hear the drilling? Can you hear the pumping? This is what motor racing is all about, and thank you for coming and saying hello.
We need you every single round for your enthusiasm, Ainsley. Everyone knows you and your enthusiasm. What brings you into this sport, and what keeps you here time on time?
Well, I think it's the fact that, you know, racing, there's something special about it. All you got to do is look around. You know, you open up your booklet now, and you can see all the young, enthusiastic. Some of them are 13, 14, 15, 16. They're racing. We all know about Lewis. We all know where it started in go-karting. And, you know, to come to this level now and to take people on, to get them to have that belief, we've got champions. Let's keep producing them. This is where it all starts. This is where it begins. And this is where the fun starts, but it also where they learn, where they galvanise their skills. And, you know, it's going to be a great race this afternoon. You can hear it in me. You can hear the passion in me. I want us to do well. Please, no accidents. Please, just a great finish.
Yeah, it's going to be a thrilling championship. Talking about young guys, 16 years and 10 months, Seb Hopkins down the way there. So there are drivers throughout who are fantastic. Ainsley, we are so happy to see you here again, and we hope to see you next season.
Yeah,
thanks very much.
I certainly hope so too, and thanks for coming and saying hello. Keep watching, guys. What a race this afternoon.
There you go. Cheers, Ainsley. Back to you, Andy.
I could sit here and listen to him talk all day, and there is Harriet's Chariot with the number 9 Century Motorsport BMW. Tom Rawlings will be taking the start in that car. The car that he shares with Chris Salkeld, and they'll be starting reasonably well, as Ainsley was saying, third on the GT4 grid. The story of qualifying yesterday really was that most of the teams arriving at Donington Park in championship contention didn't have a very good time of it. Rain arriving at the start of the GT3 qualifying sessions really mixed the grid up, and then a couple of interesting tyre choices in the slightly drier GT4 qualifying session also mean that our championship leading car, the Newbridge Aston Martin, will be starting an awfully long way down the grid. So these first few laps are going to be perilous for those who are hoping to keep themselves in one piece. The pit lane about to open. Cars will very shortly be heading out onto the circuit. Before we get into the intricacies of this final round of the championship, let's introduce the rest of the commentary team. You've already met myself, Andy McEwen, Bryn Lucas down in the pit lane. If you've been watching along all year, you'll be well familiar with us. But a new voice, perhaps, to you British GT viewers is the man alongside me, Harry Benjamin, making his British GT debut. And I think it's fair to say, Harry, you're already a fan.
I am sold, and if I wasn't already, but forget me, let's get Ainsley up here.
Yes.
I think we need him. I need that enthusiasm. We're going to channel our Ainsley Harriet for this commentary, I think, because, well, it's going to be easy too, because this British GT race is set up to be an absolute corker. Qualifying was absolutely brilliant, and this is what the track looks like as well. 2.49 kilometres and the miles and 4.2 kilometres, 12 turns. It's going to be challenging, Andy.
Yeah, the full Grand Prix circuit, as always, in use here at Donington Park, as has sort of been tradition, really, for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. And what a brilliant venue it is. The fast sweeping run through the Craner curves and the old hairpin, the climb back uphill into those two right-handers at the top end of the circuit, McLean's and then Coppice, then the drag down the Exhibition Straight, and then the complexion of the circuit changes completely. You hang a left onto the Melbourne Loop, and suddenly it's all first gear hairpins. The right-hander at Melbourne hairpin, the left-hander at Goddard's, and that's always the scene of drama. Never has a race gone by here at Donington Park without something happening down at that area of the circuit. So I know a lot of spectators will have made their way over to that part of the track. It is a 2-hour race then here this afternoon, the sort of traditional length, if you like, of these British GT races. We don't have a set pit window, but there are minimum times that the start driver can do. So the GT3 start driver has to stay in the car for at least 62 minutes. Remember, the AMs start the race, and in GT4 it's 58 minutes, so the GT4 cars should start pitting a little bit earlier than the GT4s. There is a minimum pit stop time as well. This is from pit entry line to pit exit line, 110 seconds for GT3, 140 for GT4, and then if you run in the Silver Cup within GT4, there's an additional 26 seconds, and you carry 25 kilos of ballast for the entire duration of the race. We also then throw in success penalties, so those who were on the podium in their classes last time out at Brands Hatch have to spend extra time in the pit lane. So Enduro Motorsport, championship contenders just about in GT3, they won at Brands Hatch after late drama for the Nearies, who we're seeing on screen. They therefore carry a 20-second success penalty, and in GT4 it's the championship leading Aston Martin that has the longest success penalty. Matt Topham and Darren Turner, 20 extra seconds to spend in the pits. Team ABBA Racing, though, they took their chance on tyres yesterday and they have landed on pole position. Harry, a circuit that they have had great success at in the past. Are they the favourites, do you think, to grab a win here in GT3, or are some of those challengers from further back going to make their way through?
I don't think I could dare call a favourite at this stage. That's how close the British GT Championship is right now. Of course, that Richard Neary car as well, Neary father and son duo on pole. Of course, good off the bat, some good form from Brands Hatch, winning that, and also being, I think they won here last year as well at Donington. So they know this track well. Starting with nobody in front of you, all they've got to focus on is getting a good start and then see where you are come turn one, because behind them, as you say, we've got our championship challengers, but they're right in the middle of the pack, right in the danger zone. So they're going to be focused on fully charging through, and that's where the drama could happen. So Neary might well stay clean and run away with it, but we'll see.
Well, Richard won't know what to do with himself, because normally in the first part of the race we talk about Richard overtaking about 7 cars in the first lap, but here he only has to get off the line and hold the lead into the first corner. So Richard Neary then pulling down towards his pole position. His son Sam will be sharing the car with him, and he can chat now to Bryn.
Well, we've just been talking about yourself and your dad and how well you did here yesterday. You've had some success at Donington Park. You won here last year. You had a 3rd place as well. Didn't go quite to plan last time out here, but the car's looking mega around this track, and you start in the best possible position. Thanks, Richard.
Yeah, exactly. No, obviously last round here this year didn't really go too well, but starting on pole position, we asked for a wet qualifying, and we got exactly what we wanted right at the right time. So, but no, we also, I think we deserve to be there. We got P1 in the pro session as well. So, no, really good, really happy, and hopefully it can be a nice clean race. And you know, we've won from 10th. Hopefully first is a bit easier to win, so we'll see.
With your dad's right foot, it should be a good starting position. Just want to quickly have a look at the car. Can you talk us through the front of the car, the bonnet there, with all the autographs that are on it as well? And if Brownie can have a look, we can just catch all the names on there. I've got the boss, I assume that's your dad. There's also Gold Dust, Legend, and Dribbler. Which one are you?
I'm called Gold Dust. It's a little team thing where they all call me Gold Dust. It's an old joke, but yeah, the boss is Rich, and yeah, we get all the team to sign the car the last round. We think it's a nice sort of memento to them, and sort of a token of appreciation for what they do for us.
Yeah, well, look, we wish you all the best. Thanks very much for that, and good luck there. As we just head over here to my left now, as you can see to the right-hand side of the camera there, car 67. These guys just won the GT Cup, and they've started brilliantly with Simon and with Michael in the car there, and they are going to really force down to that line, that first corner alongside Richard Neary. We know how hot Richard can be off the line, and well, these two have got their work cut out, but it's great to see the GT Cup winners starting so far up the grid. The grid is absolutely ram-packed full of people, as you can tell. There's a real buzz about it here at Donington Park, and it's great to see such a huge turnout for the 20th anniversary of Intelligent Money. Track conditions here, well, it's nice and dry. That's the good thing. There's no rain. The sun is looking pretty nice. It's high in the sky, and I think everyone's in pretty good spirits, although it was such a tricky qualifying, as Andy and Harry have been talking about, such a tricky qualifying yesterday that has thrown a few cat amongst the pigeons out here, and I think it's going to really set us up beautifully. But I'll keep wandering down and find some more drivers to chat to. In particular, I really want to catch up with Matt Topham, because he yesterday looked really despondent from what happened to them. But they just got the timing wrong and the tyre choice wrong. And we're going to head up as best I can. We're looking at not far from me right now. On the right-hand side, Ian Loggie in the AMG Merc, the pink Merc. And then to his right is that Balon and Mitchell car. So let's see if I can just jump into the car and have a quick word with Adam here. I've just seen Sandy just walking across. Adam, it's a tricky position for you. You've got a lot of work to do. I'm just going to remove this. You've got a lot of work to do out there, haven't you, to get anywhere up the grid? But that's what you need to do. You've got to force your way through. Is there a real game plan, or just you're going to get your head down?
Get your head down, get as far out of the blocks as fast as possible, make some places as quickly as we can, and see what happens.
Does it help or hinder that you've got Loggie to your left?
No, I thought that's going to be good fun.
Well, we'll wait and see. Good luck there, Adam. So yeah, Ian Loggie just to his left-hand side, heading down to that first turn. It's going to be absolutely thrilling to see what happens. One car and one guy that didn't have a lot of great fortune was James Cottingham, just here in the beautiful yellow DK Engineering AMG Merc GT3, and he had a real trouble with the tyre choice as well, and it caught so many people out. Was the track drying? Was it wet? It really caused them quite a few problems. Now, one car that is fantastic to see back here at Donington Park, as you can just see, is this Beech Dean Aston Martin. Just having a quick chat is Andrew Howard there with the track commentator. But let's just jump in because it's great to see Andrew Howard here. He's raced this season in GT3, but it's great to see the Aston. And it's also great to see you back here in the Aston a year on from last time.
Yeah, it's very exciting. You know, it's a bit of a voyage of discovery. We've been off to Europe and tried to compete in Europe. But it's just fabulous to be back in this championship.
What is the overall plan, by the way, for this particular race? And what's the overall plan, do you think, for the team moving forward?
I think the overall plan in this race is survive the first 10 laps. I think it's going to be quite energetic. There's a lot at stake, and having sat on the grid before, knowing what it's like to go for a championship, there's a lot of pressure down there. But I think for our race, you know, we're in a silver arm class. We want to see how competitive we are. And then going forward is, you know, let's try and get the Aston competitive again.
That would be lovely. Next season, eyes on that one?
Listen, I'd love to be back in this championship. I think it's the best Pro-Am championship going in Europe, and I think the competition in it is fantastic. So this is where I'd love to be back.
Great to see you back, and good luck. Let's just take a little quick bit more of a stroll, because if we go through the crowd, like I say, it's a huge crowd here. It's fantastic to see many people, and we've got a bit of a nice run, haven't we, up to this race. And we're moving on to the Gt4 Pole Sitter now, and over to the right-hand side of the Pole Sitter, or the left-hand side of the Pole Sitter, to our right is Sennan Fielding and Richard Williams. In fact, Sennan's just there. Let's have a quick word with Sennan. I don't want to interrupt Richard so much because, well, you've got, a thumbnail maybe on the trophy, but a heck of a lot of work to do.
Yeah, to be fair, I think this race we've just got to go out there and focus on our own job. I think the Steller boys have done a mega job all year. We just want to go out there, enjoy the last race of the season. Unfortunately, I think we're on the back foot with the success penalty, but we can focus on our job, and if we have a little bit of lady luck on our side, then that's what we can hope for.
You had lady luck on your side yesterday with tyres. It's always been the talking point over this weekend, and you're quite a long way back of Topham and Turner. If you look back there, it's a heck of a margin. 21 seconds. If Richard gets his head down, could you build that 21-second gap maybe, so when you come in and do a driver changeover, it's just you and Darren fighting out there?
Hopefully. I'm hoping he pulls like 30 seconds, so I have a nice easy race, but like I say, it's last race of the year. Everyone's got something to prove. If there's a safety car, we're really on the back foot like we was at Brands Hatch. So it's a huge deficit to try and gain. All we can do is hope that we've got the car underneath us, which I'm sure the Steller Motorsport boys have gave us, and just get our heads down, try and be nice and consistent, stay out of trouble, and hope for the best. But main thing is we've just got to enjoy it. So either way, it'll be good fun.
We'll see you in no matter what. Good luck. There you go. Great to hear there. The thoughts of Sennan. We caught up with Ainsley Harriott at the top of the show there, and there's his car on track. There's a beautiful to our left right now. If you look down to the front, you can see just how far they've got to head down here from the back of the grid in GT4s, but you can see the Aston looking pretty majestic. And then we come to the Porsche that came in, and Seb Hopkins, I was talking to Seb Hopkins earlier on, you know, 16 years and 10 months is how old Seb Hopkins is. I said to him, what do you want to do in your career? What's your overall aim? And he said, Le Mans, you know, so he's aiming as high as he possibly can. And the reason I'm walking all the way back down here as we are heading towards the race, by the way, is to show you just how far back the Newbridge car is, because you have to go all the way back to the exit of the left-hand turn onto the start-finish straight to see exactly where Matt Topham is with Darren Turner. They've got a heck of a job ahead of them. It's going to be 2 hours of fraught racing, and to their right-hand side, Team Brit, and they've not been at all slow this season. They have looked very, very impressive in their first season too, and I think we're in for a bit of a treat, Andy, and, well, over to you to talk through it. I'm going to go and, I think, take a little sit down in the breath, because I am absolutely puffed out now.
Yes, I expect a jog back down the grid, please, Bryn, because we need you out of the way. The race is about to start in a few minutes' time. The grid will be cleared of all of the VIPs and team personnel and a couple of errant TV presenters, and we will then get into 2 hours of action. The Donington decider, the last round of the 2022 championship, the 30th anniversary season as well of British GT, which over the decades has become one of Britain's best loved championships, a really popular championship. and you can see why, Harry. I mean, there is nothing not to love about British GT. We're about to have a closer look, I think, at the cars on the grid. And when you get a chance to get up close and personal with them, Harry, that I think is when you really start to get the appeal of GT racing.
You can't appreciate these cars purely through the screen. They are just absolutely fascinating. Up close and personal, having the privilege to walk down the pit lane earlier and just to chat to the drivers. They're just so passionate about not just the racing, but these cars. I was having a chat with James Cottingham earlier on as well, who just says he loves being a part of this. It's the highlight of his year, getting up close and personal to these cars, the size of them, the grunt from the engines, GT3 and GT4 cars coming together and racing it out, as the segue nearly gets into a little bit of trouble there, but making it way down. And this just gives you a full picture of how big the grid is. We've got cars around the final corner.
Yes, 29 of them in total, 15 within the GT3 class, 14 GT4s. There was a time a year or so ago where GT4s were outnumbering GT3s. It's nice to see the GT3 field getting bigger. More than, we've got to 10 different manufacturers, an awful lot of those within the GT4 ranks, where we've seen pretty much every manufacturer being quick over the course of the season. Balanced performance, of course, used in both classes to try and ensure tight and even competition between the different cars that often generate their lap times in very different ways. It all comes together to give us what's always exciting racing. I mean, we're talking a lot about the championship here, Harry. There's a good race to be had, actually, because there are a lot of drivers at the front and teams at the front who either haven't won, are new to the championship and trying to prove themselves, or who are just wanting to end their season on a high. So we'll be focusing a lot on those coming from further back because they're fighting for the title, but those at the front don't really care about that.
No, not at all. They just want to go out there and win it. We've already spoken about our pole sitter Neary, but alongside him, Simon Orange lining up in that orange racing McLaren as well. The Mercedes on the left-hand side, the McLaren, the number 67 on the right-hand side, making their step up from GT Cup. First time properly in British GT. They must be laughing. They've got prime views right there into turn one, but we know that Neary on the left-hand side is a hot starter. He gets off the line super quickly, laying a little bit of rubber down as we get underway then for this formation lap.
Indeed so. The field will be led around by the Lotus Emira safety car, and we will then go racing at the end of that lap for 2 hours. A 2x2 rolling start it will be, and that run into Redgate Corner is going to be absolutely crucial for those at the front, the back, and indeed the middle of the grid. There you can see our championship leader Ian Loggie coming through. He's going to be starting outside of the top 10 within the GT3 ranks. So as the field make their way around then on the formation lap, let's take a look at how they'll line up. Richard Neary on pole position with Simon Orange on his championship debut starting alongside him. Row number 2 of the grid then is where we find Nick Halstead, winner at Spa for Fox Motorsport, and Darren Leung, also a debutant in the championship in the Century BMW, who was on the podium at Brands Hatch. Stuart Proctor and Simon Watts, a pair of McLarens, sharing the 3rd row of the grid, both of them Silver Am teams as well. So too is Andre Borodin's Greystone GT McLaren, who's got Morgan Tillbrook, mathematically the first of the title contenders, starting 8th. The next two, though, are the two we really need to watch. Adam Balon and Ian Loggie, 2nd and 1st in the championship, respectively. They're sharing the 5th row of the grid. And then on row number 6, just behind them, Graham Davidson and James Cottingham, the 4th team, mathematically in contention for the title to Seas Motorsport. Row number 7 then towards the back of the GT3 elements of the grid, the returning Andrew Howard and Mark Smith, who was off in the gravel early in qualifying yesterday in his Paddock Motorsport McLaren. And then on the 8th row, Mia Flewitt, the last of the GT3s. Then you move into GT4. It was Toyota on top in qualifying. Tom Edgar for the Toyota Gazoo Racing UK squad has Richard Williams, 2nd in the GT4 Championship, Steller Motorsport, and they've got a prime starting spot to try and take the title from. Row number 2 within GT4, Tom Rawlings BMW and Josh Miller, the R Racing Aston Martin, sits 3rd, and very much in contention. No success penalty for them either. That could help them when we get to the pit stops. Jamie Orton and Joe Wheeler and ex-team Parker Porsche ahead of Assetto and Ginetta. 4th row then within the GT4 ranks for Marco Signoretti's Ford Mustang. That car's been a winner here before. And Eric Evans, an American driver, making his debut in the 2nd Academy Motorsport Ford Mustang. Kavi Chindu's Paddock McLaren is next, ahead of Will Burns, the outgoing GT4 champion, starting deep in the field for this one after a post-qualifying penalty. Aaron Morgan for Team Brit is the first of the Pro-Am GT4s, ahead of Matt Topham, championship leader, a lot further back than he'd like to be after a bad call on tyres in the first part of qualifying, whilst Adam Knight and Ed McDermott make up the back row of the 29-car grid. It's the 30th anniversary season for British GT. It's the Donington decider. Place your bets, everyone. Who's going to win the race? Who's going to win the championships? Will they all get through the first corner in one piece? That's not always been the case here at Donington. It's always a real pinch point into Redgate, and both of those front row starters are going to want to get out of that corner in the race lead. The final race of the 2022 Intelligent Money British GT Championship about to burst into life. Richard Neary on the left, Simon Orange on the right. The lights go out and Morgan Tillbrook's away well. Looking the Enduro McLaren immediately trying to gain some ground. Richard Neary, though, will lead them into Redgate for the first time, and that's almost contact for Adam Balon into the back of the McLaren, and around goes one car in the middle of the pack. There is contact, and Balon and Loggie are off, the top two in the championship. In the gravel, the Enduro McLaren quarter winner as well. 3 of the GT3 title contenders in the gravel at the first corner. Is there damage to Ian Loggie's car? He has to try and finish this race, and he could be in trouble earlier on. Down into the old head when they go. Andre Borodin is wide as well. Off 2 goes the second 2 Seas Mercedes. The other one, the surviving title contending car, goes up and has gained several places on this first lap. What drama in the first couple of corners. Richard Neary leads the way, Simon Orange second, Nick Halstead third, but as we predicted, Harry, the drama was behind them.
Ian Loggie off. That's going to be a disaster for him as well. Into the gravel trap. It was much cleaner in GT4. Further back, they had a fairly decent start for them, but disaster, really. It was the last thing he wanted. A good start from Neary at the front. I'll tell you who had a really good start as well. James Cottingham further back from 12th up the grid in that 2 Seas Motorsport, the Mercedes, going really well. He was really disappointed with his qualifying, so making the moves as he manages to get up a few positions. So, championship very much still up in the air.
Here comes Balon up the inside. He's got Clutton behind, but where is Loggie? I can't see him. Loggie is behind all of the GT4s and possibly carrying damage. Balon up the inside of the 2 GT4 leaders who were side by side. Richard Williams there on the outside of Tom Edgar. We're on board with Richard Williams, second in the GT4 Championship, second in the GT4 race right now, but with GT3 cars already trying to find a way back past him. Out of Goddard's they go. Andre Borodin, I think, is carrying damage in his McLaren. He seems well off the pace, but where is Loggie? There is Loggie, right at the top of the shot. He is mired amidst the GT4s, but crucially, Harry hasn't pitted, so if there is damage, he thinks he can live with it.
He's carrying on through, and he's about to get, though, I think, overtaken by the Team Brit. Was he going round the outside of the McLaren through turn 1? The Team Brit McLaren on the inside, the Mercedes on the outside. We've got a Mustang of the 62 running out wide onto the grass just behind them as well. Picks up another position. So recovery time for Loggie, who has got through on that Team Brit car. And now next up, it's the Paddock Motorsport 26 McLaren. Fight back for the number 6 then. Under 2 hours of racing to go. It's early doors. The pack is still close together. It's not all over for Loggie just yet.
You could not script it, could you? This was the worst fear of Ian Loggie starting that far down the order, that something could happen at the first corner. There is an incident involving cars 77 and 91 under investigation. 77 is Enduro, 91 is the Century BMW of Darren Leung. I think they were the first 2 to tangle, and around went the McLaren, and that sparked the incident further back. On board with the Morgan Tillbrook car then. You can see there, confirmation, this car part of that investigation, but who the officials think to blame, we'll wait and see. Adam Balon, bangs into the side there of the number 2 McLaren. Simon Watts missing some front bodywork after that first lap skirmish, and he was almost missing some right-hand side bodywork as well. Balon is not hanging around.
And is that number 2 McLaren missing a little bit of its front bonnet as well? It is, isn't it? The number 2 being involved in some early skirmishes. The 2 McLarens go side by side coming out of the final corner. The Enduro McLaren, the number 77, will be on the outside as they approach turn 1. Who is late on the brakes? The number 2 is going to have the inside line later on the brakes and manages to just about hold on to that position. Just having a quick look as well further back in GT4. I think the Toyota, the pole sitter Edgar, has kept his position there, but Richard Williams and that Audi, who hand over to Sennan Fielding, really right on the back of him as well. So nice battle developing there between the 2 GT4 leaders.
And right behind them is Josh Miller in the R Racing Aston Martin. He's on the tail of the Audi that he's fighting for the championship, and as Matt Topham has not made any progress, it could boil down to those 2 that we're talking about contesting for the championship come the end of the race. Richard Neary leads, 1.4 seconds the advantage over Simon Orange second, third Nick Halstead, fourth the under investigation Darren Leung, and James Cottingham has gained another place since we last saw him. He's into the top 5 now. Cottingham started 12th, and it's a Richard Neary-esque first lap really, because he's carved his way through the carnage and he's into the top 5. Realistically needs to be winning this race, does the number 4 Mercedes. That's something I didn't expect to be on the cards, but that first lap has really helped them.
No, well, the Loggie and Balon coming together. Bryn just getting in touch from the pit lane. No damage reported by Loggie or Balon in their Mercedes and Lamborghini cars respectively. So that is at least good news. If the drivers don't feel like there's damage, they could get their head down and push hard. But a 97 Aston Martin looking very bullish behind the Lamborghini as they go into the corner, just out of shot now. We focus further back on the number 24 McLaren, which is making its way through. We're picking up that battle now between the Lamborghini and the Aston Martin. The number 72 Balon Howard in the back into turn 1, and well, fairly even as it is. They carry on through. Another look back at the start, though.
Yes, so the lead goes to Richard Neary, but watch that 77 McLaren. That is Morgan Tillbrook. He's somehow going to make contact with the BMW, goes into the back of it and spins himself, and bang, 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 they all come in behind, and it just so happens that it's 3 of the championship contenders that were next in line. Tillbrook had a really good start, found a gap round the outside, and then mid-corner, they both run wide, the BMW slows, and Tillbrook kind of had nowhere to go.
It was like the BMW just checked up all of a sudden as if it knew it wasn't going to make the corner. Immediately off the throttle just to try and not go into the gravel, and in doing so, carnage behind.
This is on board with Adam Balon. You can see Tillbrook going through. At the moment, everything's okay. Nearly gets into the back of the McLaren, but he's okay. And then suddenly, there's a roadblock. There is some contact there to the front of the Lambo, but Adam did a really good job, actually, to skirt around that and not get stuck in the gravel.
And they were all super lucky as well, because then the GT4 field came breezing past into turn 1. Luckily, they had their wits about them, and they all managed to filter back through. But that could have been a lot worse than it is. But out in front, though, that Mercedes of Richard Neary now with a 1.5 second gap to the 67 McLaren. So going well out in the lead.
And here comes James Cottingham. James Cottingham has caught that third place battle. Nick Halstead and Darren Leung, there he is. That yellow Mercedes is on a mission. Richard Neary sets the fastest lap. No bonus points for fastest laps, though, in British GT. So that is worth a bit of pride for Richard, but doesn't actually affect the championship. And there is a stop-go penalty being handed out to Morgan Tillbrook. He is being blamed for that first corner incident, and that is surely now the final nail in the coffin for their championship fight. Enduro Motorsport handed a stop-go penalty for their contact, and that's Loggie! That's Loggie pointing the wrong way, coming out of the last corner, and any progress that he had been making through the GT4s has been lost. It is all falling apart for the championship leader.
Loggie coming out of the final corner. Hopefully we'll get another look at how that happened, whether it was contact with another car or did he just light up the rears. But it doesn't look like there's any major damage to that Mercedes. He's back on the road, facing the right way, but falling down the field. Here we go then. We ride on board with the man currently leading this championship, but he's having to do it the hard way.
Yeah, let's see. So he's coming up behind Richard Williams, gets on the power, and it just... Right, I think there's damage on that car, because that was, it suddenly snapped, but it was well out of the corner. He didn't have a lot of steering lock on. The car was pretty straight, and suddenly it let go from the right rear corner. Now, I don't know. I'm not a mechanic. I'm but a lowly commentator, but that looked odd to me, Harry.
There's something about Ian Loggie, Donington Park, and it being the final round of the British GT Championship. It never quite seems to go exactly his way, but it's still early doors. I think we might have just had a quick change up at front for third. I think Leon might have just got through on Halstead. The BMW up there in third, the M4 GT3 car running in front of the McLaren as well. So fights coming through, but the yellow DK branded Mercedes of James Cottingham cutting through the field. Spoke to him just before this race as well, feeling bullish. He feels like they need some good luck this year. They've come so close to getting some wins on the board, but it has not worked out for them. He's currently right up behind the number 40 McLaren. That's the Fox Motorsport car of Nick Halstead, and then there's that BMW right in front. So a nice battle here for third overall.
They needed some good luck. They've had some good luck, but they've also got a very, very good driver in James Cottingham, relatively new to the GT racing scene, a well-known historic racer here in the UK, but made his debut in British GT midway through, or early on in fact, last season. Did the odd round in 2021, full season campaign this year though with Seas Motorsport, and he is into the top 5, right on the back of the top 3, or the third place battle I should say. So we've seen the drama for Ian Loggie, we've seen the spin. First of all, let's just see whether James Cottingham makes the move on Nick Halstead. He does not. I believe that Bryn might have been able to have a chat with Ram Racing. Bryn, any news on potential damage for the Loggie car?
Joe, it's really interesting because Balon and Barwell are next door in the garage, literally next door to where Loggie is. I've been into the garage, spoken to the team, spoken to Jules as well. There's no concern among the team about any damage to Loggie's car at all. And Jules just said to me he overcooked it on the exit, so he just thinks he got on the throttle too much on the exit there, and that's what caused it. But there is no concern amongst any of the team about damage to the car.
Okay, that's good news, and perhaps it is just the pressure of the situation starting to get to Ian Loggie, but that is, he's really put himself in a difficult position now. He is 26th place, Ian Loggie, and probably the best part of a minute behind the leader.
it's not been a good start, has it, for Loggie? But still, never get your head down. He is fighting through. He needs to channel what James Cottingham has drunk this morning, because he is on an absolute mission still, just not quite finding a way through yet on that pesky McLaren in front of him, which is just allowing the BMW in third to escape up the road ever so slightly. Here's the Enduro Motorsport McLaren making its way round after its stop-go penalty, or being given a stop-go penalty, I should say, and falling down the field. So not the start they wanted in the number 77 crew, but the gap out front now being extended further. Neary with a 2.2 second gap over Orange, then Leon, Halstead, Cottingham in the top 5.
Interestingly, Tillbrook comes out of the pit lane still a long way ahead of Ian Loggie. Ian Loggie in 23rd place is 57 seconds off the lead. Now, he doesn't have to win the race. A top 5 finish in this race would guarantee the championship, regardless of where any of the other championship contenders were to finish. But right now, getting into the top 10 seems like a very, very distant possibility. There is the 3rd place battle, really more of a 4th place battle now. Nick Halstead, as he's turned his attention to defending from Cottingham, has just allowed Darren Leung to get away. Great to see for the 2nd race in a row, that Century Motorsport BMW running in a podium place. But you're on board with James Cottingham, who perhaps now is the man most likely to wrestle this title away from Ian Loggie, but he needs to make a bit more progress. He's running 5th, gets a good exit there from the old hairpin, and might he now be able to challenge Nick Halstead for this 4th position heading towards McLean's?
Right up behind him as well. Difficult to overtake through here if you're not having a sizeable advantage already, but he could size him up well through the apex of the corner. Nice clean drive on exit. McLaren in front takes a little bit of a defensive line as we have a now look at GT4, and it's the number 48 Toyota starting to extend the lead a little bit. Tom Edgar currently leading this pack ahead of Richard Williams in the Audi. There's a good fight for 3rd, I think, between Miller and Signoretti. Just half a second between the Aston Martin and the Ford Mustang behind, but Richard Williams at the wheel at the moment of that Steller Motorsport car. Here is that battle brewing in GT4. I say it's brewing, it's happening right in front of us. That Aston Martin just about staying in front of the 61 Mustang, but is the Mustang going to try and line up a move through the next corner they come? Is he going to get a wheel alongside and down the inside line? The Mustang nearly through. He's going to have the outside line though. The Aston Martin can't do anything about it. It's 61 through.
That is a carbon copy of the move that car made against Newbridge when we were here earlier on in the season. Through also now comes Ian Loggie, the 2nd time probably that he's overtaken these cars, on board with the championship leading car, who is running well down the order. He was 20th at the start of the lap. You only score points within your class though, so passing all of these GT4 cars isn't earning him any more points. He needs to be passing GT3 cars in order to try and improve his points haul. And right now, he's not in the points. The top 10 within GT3 would score. There are a handful of them, 6 in total, that do not score points because they're race-by-race entries. We'll get into that later on, though, as and when it becomes relevant. But, yeah, interesting this from the R-Racing car, Harry, because Josh Miller was right behind Richard Williams a few laps ago, and he's dropped back by several seconds and now actually fallen off the podium. So the Aston Martin, at this stage of the race at least, doesn't seem to have the pace.
Yes, and I think they were a bit of a favourite to win out in GT4. Really a young duo at the wheel. I think if they win it, they'll be the youngest to ever win. But Jamie Day and Josh Miller, 17 and 16 years old respectively, is the number 90 BMW. Has a little look on the Ginetta coming into turn 1. Can't make it stick through there. But you're right, just falling away ever so slightly. But could be playing the long game. We've got a long race. Strategy to come into play. Driver changes. Success penalties all to play out still. So you can't win the race in the first 20 minutes.
Joe Wheeler here then under immense pressure from Will Burns. They've got Orton closing in as well behind them. Jamie Orton, that is, in the Team Parker Racing Porsche. So a three-way fight here. This is for about 6th place, I think, in GT4. Yeah, 6th place in GT4 belongs at the moment to the Ginetta, with the BMW and the Porsche closing in. And again, a great look at the variety of cars that we've got in GT4. A Toyota leading, an Audi leading, a Mustang leading, an Aston Martin, then a BMW, a Ginetta and a Porsche, a BMW, sorry, not a BMW behind. Great variety of car at the head of the GT4 pack. And this battle continues to wind its way onto the Melbourne Loop. Meanwhile, back in GT3 land, I wonder if Andrew Howard's enjoying his return to British GT. Well, he's in the thick of a battle now with Stuart Proctor, and this is for 8th place overall. The Aston Martin with superior speed up the hill, and he blasts past the McLaren and takes over 8th place.
Nicely done there from Andrew Howard, who might well be back in anger next year as well, with several full-time entries, who knows, in that Aston Martin. But the Beech Dean team safely through on that McLaren, and up and away he goes. Still out in front though, Neary just extending that advantage ever so slightly now, creeping up to 4 seconds between him and Simon Orange for the top 2 positions at the moment. This championship's just been flown wide open, hasn't it? Loggie desperately trying to claw his way back through the pack before he has to finish off his stint time and hand over. Luckily, it's Jules Gounon who will be in the car.
If anyone can dig him out of this hole, you would place your bet on Jules Gounon, wouldn't you? Who is a world-renowned GT driver, but is he going to be able to bounce back from this? Are they going to be able to score enough points to retain the title? Lead gap came down that time by 0.8 of a second, actually. Richard Neary to Simon Orange. It's back under 3 seconds now. Darren Leung a similar margin back in third, with Halstead and Cottingham still right behind him. Adam Balon, by the way, had moved into 7th place ahead of Stuart Proctor a couple of laps ago. Can't remember if we mentioned that. So Stuart Proctor definitely slipping down the order slightly. And the next man to arrive on his tail will be Mark Smith. You're seeing him now in the Paddock Motorsport McLaren. That would normally be Kelvin Fletcher at the wheel of that car, but other commitments mean that Kelvin can't race with us here this weekend. So Martin Plowman sharing the car for the first time with Mark. He did have an off in qualifying yesterday in very tricky conditions, went into the gravel at Redgate, brought about a red flag, but that was a fairly easy move. Stuart Proctor seems to be struggling. I don't know if he's had a knock somewhere that's damaged the performance of the McLaren, but that car slipping down the order pretty rapidly.
They're almost getting to that point in the race where they're just having a little bit of they've all spread out, a little bit of a lull while they just try and get up to speed and find their pace as well. But further back in GT4, that battle's still brewing though, but there is Cottingham trying it down the inside. He is bullish this morning.
He is indeed. They're already amongst the GT4 cars as well. So this now, just as you're saying things were starting to calm down, invariably when they hit the traffic, it all kicks off again. There's the second 2Cs Mercedes with Graham Davidson in, I've lost track now, either his 3rd or 4th different GT3 car that he's raced in the championship this year. But he's going equally as well in the Mercedes as he had done in McLaren's earlier on this season, for example. And of course, we've seen Graham have success in the championship in Aston Martins in the past as well. And he was actually closing in on this group. He was the quickest of that gaggle on the previous lap. And as they now start to hit traffic, that might give him an opportunity. Speaking of opportunities, is this Cottingham's opportunity to get past Nick Halstead? No, it's not, because he gets boxed in behind the Marco Signoretti Ford Mustang, which still runs 3rd in GT4. And you can see catching a back marker at a slightly inopportune moment can cost you so much time and almost a position, because the teammate car of Davidson briefly there pokes his nose to the inside, but sensibly I think thinks better of it.
Yeah, but Cottingham's got to watch out here, because that 20 Mercedes behind him looking rather nifty at the moment at this stage of the race. Cottingham's bullishness from right at the start of this race is, I'm going to say, it's calmed down. Immediately now it will do the reverse, but we can see riding on board, looking back from Cottingham to that number 20 Mercedes of Graham Davidson at the wheel in the 2Cs Motorsport Mercedes car. Under braking, how close can he get? Into the hairpin. Close enough, but then on drive, Cottingham just has it better out of the corner as well. So the two 2Cs cars fighting it out at the moment, making their way through around this Donington Park full Grand Prix layout we're using. 2.49 miles, 4.02 kilometres as we start another lap.
And they're just about to go past the rejoining McLaren of Stuart Proctor, who's had a puncture on his McLaren, and they've taken the front bodywork off that. So there are 2 McLarens now running around with no bonnet, or a boot, I suppose, as it would be in a mid-engine sports car. There is Ian Loggie. These were the points coming into the weekend, I believe, that we saw there with Loggie with this healthy championship lead. What I want to know is how it stands now, because he's about to gain a place. He's going up the inside of Andre Borodin, and that will give him a few extra points. So as it stands, he's still doing enough. 9.5 points to the good. He's just gained perhaps another point or 2 with that move, or has he? Is he inside the top 10? No, he's not, I don't think, is he? Right now, Ian Loggie is not in the points, so the more places that Balon or Cottingham can gain, until Loggie gets in the points, there's nothing he can do about that, and that will be a gain for them. So he's ahead right now, but the other's more likely to gain points perhaps than he is.
Yeah, and Loggie losing time as well to the likes of Balon in that Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evo car. That's second in the last few laps he's losing. So still desperately trying to find a way through. An hour and 40 remain of this Donington decider for the British GT Championship, celebrating 30 years of the British GT Series, 20 years of intelligent money as well. And what a finale we are having. GT3 and GT4 titles still to be decided, and drama in the early stages too, with championship protagonist Ian Loggie, well, being collected really, along with some of his rivals, into the gravel, into turn one. And for the likes, though, of James Cottingham, who came into this round in third in the championship with his teammate Lewis Williams in this yellow and red DK Mercedes, they are trying to get their way through, and they've been very quick at the start of this race. And certainly doing his championship all sorts of favours at the moment. But as it stands, it is still Ian Loggie out in the lead. But this car is now within a touching distance of taking it away from Loggie.
Yeah, well, 5.5 points now adrift of second place, 15 adrift of the championship. But the further up the order you are, the more points each position is worth, by which I mean there's a bigger difference between, for example, finishing first or second. 37.5 points for winning the race, 27 for second. So by winning the race, you score 11.5 more than the car behind you. That was close for Nick Halstead as he almost tangled with the GT4 car. The point I'm trying to make is that the further up Cottingham goes, the more points he will gain per position, and he only needs to find another, what, 15.5 was it, to try and beat Ian Loggie. So he is still very much in this, and arguably is the favourite now to take the fight to Loggie, because he's ahead of Adam Balon by about 7 or 8 seconds or so. Up into Goddard's they go. Nick Halstead there in the traffic, and here comes Graham Davidson up the inside of his teammate. Now these two cars both run out of the 2Cs awning, but Graham Davidson's in this race as much for himself as he is the team, and he wants to come through. He thinks he's quicker, but again, sensibly decides not to take it 3 abreast past the Ginetta of Joe Wheeler, who actually temporarily will separate them anyway as they come out of Redgate Corner. But fascinating dynamic this for Graham Davidson. He's out there for his own good. He wants to do well in this race for himself, for his side of the garage. Is he really going to sit behind and play rear gunner for Cottingham? At the moment, I suspect not.
Well, the other thing to remember is that that number 20 car not eligible to be scoring any points because they are guesting this weekend. So, as fast as they like, they won't collect any points, but everyone will just get shifted up when we get to the end of this race, along with the number 20, ones that are not scoring points, the 24, the 67 and the 97 in GT3, and then in GT4 it's the number 7 and the 62, all not scoring points, but they can absolutely still battle for on-track position.
Yeah, so Loggie is 13th in GT3. That would be out of the points, but I think 3 of the cars ahead of him don't score, so he's actually 10th. He's scoring a point at the moment. Here comes Cottingham, though, about to try and get himself a few more points as he pulls up alongside Nick Halstead. He went to the outside, but they both then have to go to the inside of the R Racing Aston Martin. There's always a close moment when you meet traffic down at the hairpin, but they both get through cleanly. And that just stole away that opportunity for Cottingham to make the move, though. And so Nick Halstead stays in this 4th position. Cottingham really could do with clearing the McLaren now, chasing on after Darren Young. He's only a couple of seconds up the road. Down the start-finish straight they head again, and into Redgate Corner, which is a potential overtaking opportunity, but Cottingham just now is not quite close enough. Into the tight right-hander they go, and out towards the start of their 16th lap of the race. Richard Neary now holding a 4.6 second lead over Simon Orange second, Darren Young third, Nick Halstead fourth, and there James Cottingham, the yellow Mercedes championship contending car, running in the 5th position. There are our 2 race leaders, meanwhile, because overall, a GT3 leader, Richard Neary, about to put a lap on Tom Edgar in the Toyota, who has a comfortable lead in GT4. His advantage over Richard Williams, 4.7 seconds, and Williams still 4 seconds ahead of Signoretti, who is 4.5 ahead of Josh Miller. So I'm kind of grateful for the fact that GT4 drivers are being sensible at this point, because we couldn't handle all of this action in GT3 and the same amount in GT4. They are at least separating themselves for now, but once we get towards the pit stop time midway through the race, we'll start applying those penalties, success penalties, the Silver Cup penalties, that will all bunch back together again, I'm sure.
Yeah, the closest battle I can find in GT4 at the moment is, I think, between 6th in GT4, between the number 90 Burns BMW and the number 56 Wheeler Ginetta. Further back, there's just under 0.4 of a second between them. Interesting, that Aston Martin with Topham at the wheel, Matt Topham sharing that car with Darren Turner, really struggling to make progress. 5 seconds adrift from Proctor's McLaren in front of him in GT4, just struggling to get through at the moment.
He is, isn't he? Ian Loggie, by the way, just set a personal best lap time. This is how the GT4 Championship would look then as it stands. Richard Williams and Sennan Fielding would be champions because Matt Topham is still languishing well down the order towards the back of the top 10, scoring very few points. Josh Miller and Jamie Day would stay third. Of course, Tom Edgar would now move up into fourth position ahead of the Century BMW. So a bit of chopping and changing there. Williams goes a lap down to Nick Halstead through the old hairpin, and that rather delayed again the Mercedes of James Cottingham. But the caveat to all of this is that the Audi has a longer pit stop to come because it's a Silver Cup car, whereas Topham and Turner are Pro-Ams. So an extra 26 seconds in the pit lane for the Audi compared to the Aston Martin. If I get a chance, I'll work out what the gap is between them now, but that could be awfully, awfully close after the pit stops.
It really could be as well. So they've got to try and make as much lap time on the track as possible while they're out there still racing, as big as a buffer as they can get, because they will be playing catch-up after they've taken their penalties. Yes, they have a 5 seconds less for success penalties, but then, when you, as you say, when you add that extra silver penalty on top, it's another 26 seconds as well. So work to do then for the Steller Motorsport Audi in Gt4.
Their pit stop for the Audi will be 21 seconds longer than the Aston Martin.
Okay.
They're 21 seconds ahead of the Aston Martin right now. So,
so
if they were to pit now, they'd be together as they came back on track.
Oh, so doing the job already. Well, I told them they had to push, so they're doing that well. Lovely to see. But so they've got the gap at the moment, but of course, safety cars can happen, anything can happen. That will just wipe out your lead entirely, and suddenly you're having to start from scratch again. Here is then that Topham Aston Martin came into this race leading the standings in GT4, had a 12.5 point gap to Richard Williams and Sennan Fieldings, but as we just saw with the as it stands graphic, if it finished like this, well, it might well be reversed, and Matt Topham and Darren Turner would lose out. But still, just over an hour and a half left of this British GT Donington decider.
Yes, and you expect Topham to lose time because he's a bronze-graded driver. Most of the other drivers on the track right now within GT4 are silver-graded drivers, so they should be quicker than him. Matt's been guilty this year, I think, of being a bit too hard on himself and not keeping up with some of the silvers. It's not really his job to keep up with the silvers. It's Darren Turner's job as a out-and-out pro driver who's won just about everything in GT racing around the world. It's his job to take the fight to the silvers in the second half of the race, and of course they have that shorter pit stop accordingly, so they're not out of it, that's for sure. Here comes Adam Balon down through the Fogarty S's, 7th place for Adam. He's 5 seconds behind Graham Davidson, who of course is on the back of that Halstead and Cottingham battle. There, Sandy Mitchell and Rob Collard, champions together in a Barwell Lamborghini in British GT a couple of years ago. They wrapped up their championship at the Silverstone circuit, and that is contact for Stuart Proctor, who, remember, had that puncture, and I think it was one of the other McLarens, wasn't it, that was bouncing through the gravel as well. Now, if Stewart is stranded in the middle of the road, this could be a safety car. And it was the Paddock McLaren that has the damage, and that, unfortunately, is Mark Smith's race over, I would imagine. The Enduro McLaren slips through as well, but just before we reach the half-hour mark of the race, we've got a damaged car limping back to the pit lane. We've got debris on the track. We've potentially got the Greystone McLaren stranded in the road, and now we've got James Cottingham almost up the inside of Nick Halstead at the old hairpin. He wants to get this done now in case there is a safety car.
Absolutely, and we talked about that battle in GT4 as well. If a safety car came out, that Audi gap of 21 seconds at the time would be completely wiped out. Unfortunately for that Paddock Motorsport McLaren, it's not the first time we've seen that Paddock car in the wars during a British GT race. Hopefully we'll get a replay of that at some point and have a little look just to see how it unfolded. But I think you're right, James Cottingham desperately trying to make hay while the sun shines, because that gap between Cottingham and Davidson, 5th and 6th at the moment, has never been shorter than about half a second over the last couple of laps. So they are fighting hard. Into the pits then comes the Paddock Motorsport McLaren of Smith at the wheel. A lot of damage there to that front left.
Proctor has not yet made it back to the pit lane, I can tell you, so I think he is stranded somewhere out on the circuit, and we are getting a safety car. This changes everything. I was about to mention that Darren Leung had caught Simon Orange for second. That's kind of irrelevant now. It's Richard Neary's 6.5 second lead. That will vanish. Proctor is back in the pits, actually, so I suspect the safety car is simply because of the amount of debris on the track down at the chicane, so hopefully it won't be a particularly long one, but it still has the effect of bunching the pack together. So, Stuart Proctor in the pit lane, Mark Smith also with damage from that contact. Let's see if we can piece together exactly what happened then for those two to come together at the Fogarty S's. It always is a bit of a pinch point, that particular part of the track. If you go in there side by side, you're sort of asking for trouble. The Paddock car's day is done, I think, and it's debris from these cars that has brought out the safety car. So here we go. Oh, it was contact on the way in and contact on the way out as well. So they've started the job going into the chicane and finished each other off coming out.
So unlucky, really, on the way out as well for the Paddock Motorsport car. It kind of cleared it, really, even with a bit of a touch bodywork damage there. That is the reason for the safety car, to clear up the sheer amount of debris on and off of the racing line, especially if you're coming out of that corner 2x2. You're going to get a big whack of carbon fibre, and there is what remains of the Paddock Motorsport car, the front left in bits.
Now, there are always winners and losers in these situations. The big winner, Ian Loggie. Ian Loggie was a minute off the lead. He will now at least halve that deficit. And of course, as long as the car's okay, he'll hand it over to Jules Gounon in half an hour, and Jules at least has a fighting chance of overtaking some cars. It was going to take the rest of the race to catch the bulk of the GT3 field as it was. That has now been done for him. So I'm not going to say they've got an advantage. They still have track position to gain, but they are at least now in a slightly better position than they were. The flip side of that is they're now back in the danger zone because everyone's bunched back together and fighting for positions. So swings and roundabouts, but I think they'd rather be in the fight than a minute adrift of it and hemorrhaging points.
Absolutely. I was just about to say, yeah, they get all the advantages, but now they're back surrounded by all the other cars once more when we go for our restart. So it basically is almost like a reset button, thankfully for Ian Loggie. So he's been thrown a bit of a lifeline here to try and keep this championship alive. Came in to this weekend with one hand on the trophy, really, but that hand has been slipping off ever since we got this race started. The work by the marshals there, the Orange Army, being done brilliantly, already clearing that up nicely and just allowing the next bit of traffic to make their way through, and they'll do the final sweepers. But it's a tricky corner, really, to sweep up all of that, because the cars come sweeping through, even under safety car conditions, as they all slow down to a delta following that Lotus safety car. And weaving left and right to try and keep the temperature in the tyres. A chance for these drivers just to have a little bit of a relax, a reset, while they reevaluate where they are in this race and what they want to achieve in this next few moments. And they're all bunching up very close. And there, though, is Loggie, who has been thrown this lifeline in that number 6 Mercedes.
Yes, he has. So if you'd have told us half an hour ago that this would be the picture a quarter of the way into this championship decider, I'm not sure many people would have believed you. This is how we got here. At the start of the race, Richard Neary holding on to the race lead, but it was contact between Morgan Tillbrook in the McLaren and the BMW there, look, of Darren Leung that spun the McLaren. And in the ensuing melee, both Adam Balon and Ian Loggie, the top two in the championship, ended up off the road. This was Morgan Tillbrook's view of it, just slight contact with the back of the Beamer, spun the McLaren, and from there he was a bit of a pinball. Amazingly, all of our championship contenders came out of that with minimal damage and are still in the race. But Ian Loggie was then really on the back foot, dropped down behind almost all of the GT4 cars. He'd almost got himself back to the front of the GT4 field when this happened. He dropped it coming out of Goddard's, had a half spin into the pit lane entry and dropped a huge chunk of time. He was almost a minute off the lead after that second spin, but of course the safety car now bringing him back into contention. Nick Halstead, meanwhile, battling away here with James Cottingham. This has been one of the big stories. Cottingham charging through from 12th on the grid. He sits 5th after the first half an hour of the race, but needs to gain more places in order to wrestle the championship from Ian Loggie. In GT4, it's the Toyota that leads the way, but everyone now bunching back together after a safety car period for the contact here between the Greystone and Paddock McLarens. So Richard Neary, race leader. The safety car is coming in this time. And you can see the Lotus has pulled away, the lights out, and Richard Neary now needs to execute a perfect race restart. And we're now back into this perilous situation for our championship contenders because they are going to be all bunched together again. Well, that is the Motus 1 Mercedes of Ed McDermott that's gone off before we get to the restart. How? Don't ask me. The race gets back underway, though, and Richard Neary sees the green flag. No overtaking until they cross the timing line, but once they do that, it is all go into Redgate Corner. And let's see now whether Simon Orange can go back after Richard Neary in the same way that he did in the early stages. There goes Andrew Howard, then Morgan Tillbrook, and where is Loggie? There is Loggie, and he is now 13 seconds off the lead, Harry. That is how much time he gained.
massive, massive win there for Loggie, who makes his way around the GT4 sole remaining now Paddock Motorsport entry, making its way through. But James Cottingham is off into the grass. He takes the advertising hoarding with him as well, rejoins. Thankfully, the hoarding is yellow, so it matches the livery. But he carries on going. It's not going to be doing the aero any good after what was a brilliant start to this race. On the restart in the safety car, Cottingham in trouble.
It may be yellow, but what it's obscuring is the black radiator grille. That is covering the radiator, and the engine temperatures surely are going to be soaring. So a mistake there for James Cottingham when he could least afford it. He's shaking the car, trying to get the Pirelli sign off. Pirelli, I'm sure, will be very thankful for the free advertising, but this is disastrous for Seas Motorsport's championship. All of our championship contenders now making mistakes, finding trouble, and we're not even halfway into the race yet. Meanwhile, Richard Neary defending the race lead. Simon Orange looks like he's up for the fight now. He faded a bit after the first 10 minutes or so of the race, but now he sees another opportunity to attack for the race lead.
Well, I remember this is his first time stepping up into British GT racing at the front end as well. Success in GT Cup, and now he's got a taste of what could be leading a race in this British GT series. Richard Neary has been playing it perfectly so far, you have to say. Great start, managed to keep out of trouble, extend his lead. Now, though, unfortunately, his hard work was undone with that safety car. That has allowed Orange much closer in that McLaren, along with Leon as well in third. But what a shame for Cottingham, having to come into the pits, and you can see the team there having to get the hoardings out of the way, but then running over the polystyrene as well. It's left a right mess.
Oh dear. I was going to make a comment about how beautiful Donington Park looked in the sunshine, but it does look a bit of a mess now, doesn't it? Because of
that
the
snow on the grass?
Yes, exactly. We're not quite in winter yet, although it did feel like it this morning, I have to say. So back into the race goes Cottingham. He's still got a bit of it stuck to the radiator grille, actually. Look there. They didn't clear that out properly from the front. That should fall off, though, I think. It's a smaller piece, and if he clatters a curb quite hard, it might well dislodge itself. We shall wait and see. So Richard Neary leads, getting away now from Simon Orange there. Second, third, Darren Leung's BMW. Fourth, Nick Halstead's McLaren. Fifth, then Graham Davidson's Mercedes. And now attention turns back to Balon, I think, because Adam Balon's also gained out of this. He's up into 6th position and right on the tail of the cars ahead. If Balon's Lamborghini is still okay after the contact, which they say it is, look for him to make progress, just as Morgan Tillbrook is doing up the inside of Andrew Howard.
Nice move there for the Enduro McLaren team, through at the hairpin, and away he goes. Not in championship contention, but that number 11 Paddock Motorsport car that we saw in the wars, the reasoning for this safety car. News from the pit lane from Bryn saying the steering arm completely sheared off, but they do have a spare lower arm, so we'll try to get back out for some seat time. Meanwhile, though, it's all looking suddenly a little bit of a prettier picture for that pink Mercedes of Ian Loggie, thanks now to Cottingham having to come to the pits to get rid of that advertising hoarding. Now Loggie through on Cottingham by quite some way now, and so makes the job a little bit easier as he comes into turn 1.
It all now comes down to what Adam Balon and later Sandy Mitchell can do in the 72 Lamborghini. If they win the race, Loggie must finish in the top 5. If he is 6th or lower and the 72 car wins the race, then 72 are the champions. But of course, that is a long, long way away. Loggie picking his way through the GT4 front runners. He's just gone past Josh Miller, who sits 4th in GT4. There, though, is your leader. And Tom Edgar already doing what he did in the first stint, starting to get away. The fight really here, Harry, is for 2nd place. Richard Williams not secure in that 2nd place because Marco Signoretti is right on his tail. That Mustang always works well here at Donington, and the same's true today.
Yeah, and it's poor timing, though, because Loggie is right up behind them, looking to overtake this class. Can he make a smooth move and try and not interfere with this battle that we're seeing unfolding on board to our left? Can he get them both down into the straight, into the chicane? Yes, he can. Loggie safely through, and the Audi still leading the Mustang. But that battle then for 2nd and 3rd in GT4 rages on. The Mustang has a little look down into the Melbourne hairpin. You can still see the remains of that advertising hoarding still scarpered around the track at various points. But at the moment, Richard Williams doing all he can to hold on to that position at the moment as the Toyota escapes up the road, but just has to navigate Loggie in the Mercedes, who's overtaking him, not for position, of course. Loggie in the GT3 class, and the number 48 Toyota, the leader of the GT4 category, but Loggie through, and away he goes.
Every overtake is a danger now, isn't it, for Ian Loggie? And of course, he's sat in a position that provisionally would give him the championship. In any other form of racing, the team will be on the radio and they'd say, right, don't overtake anybody, just stay where you are, don't take any risks. You don't have that luxury in multi-class racing because you are constantly overtaking people who are in the slower class. So throughout the rest of the race, every back marker that he comes up against could be the back marker that he tangles with and sends him off the road. So he's got to be so careful, Loggie. He doesn't need to pick up any more positions as of yet in GT3, but he will constantly be surrounded by cars that are getting an awful lot closer to him than he would like. Richard Williams there still holding on to this second position. Good battle going on behind as well. That was Orton right up behind Will Burns. They both got ahead of Tom Rawlings on the previous lap as Ed McDermott's Mercedes is in the pit lane after that odd spin that it had coming to the safety car restart. So perhaps there's some damage done there because we're not yet into the pit window. Here comes that battle I was mentioning then. So Will Burns up into 5th place now in GT4, but here comes Orton up the inside. That's going to end in contact. The BMW leaning on the Porsche. They both run wide over the curbs, and here now comes back at them Tom Rawlings and Joe Wheeler, and there for 2nd place round the outside goes Marco Signoretti, and he clears Richard Williams then. The Mustang up into 2nd position. What's going on behind them though? That had disaster written all over it as they descended upon the Melbourne hairpin. Well, they're all still there, but they haven't quite decided what order they're in. They're 3 abreast. The Century BMWs leaning on each other, and it's Will Burns for now who stays in front.
And then there's the Team Rocket as well. McLaren right up behind them, joining this gaggle of fun. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars, but 2 of them don't make it out of the final corner. The Porsche and the McLaren, and that McLaren, worse for wear.
That is Simon Watts. He's tangled with Orton, and can they both get going from there is the next question, because you can see where I'm going with this, can't you? If they can't, there could be another safety car intervention. That had to go wrong. There was no way that they were going to keep that battle going and then insert a quicker GT3 car into the middle of it and it not end in contact. They almost did it, but then Orton tangling with Simon Watts, and around they both have gone. Have they both crossed the line? Well, there is Orton. His car looks like it is going to be stranded with damage to the rear of it. He's got it past the line, but it's crabbing. The rear suspension's out. Can he get it into a place that's deemed safe enough by the race director that we don't need the safety car because the McLaren has got going? It is only the Porsche now that could be in harm's way.
Well, he's found an entry point, or an exit point, I should say, but that will still require a little bit of manoeuvring from the marshals to get that car off and away. Meanwhile, battle brewing here between the number 40 McLaren and the number 20 Mercedes. This the battle for 4th, with Balon, one of our championship protagonists in the green Lamborghini, lurking behind. 4th, 5th and 6th. This is in GT3 down through the crane of curves. It's the McLaren who has the advantage at the moment of Holstead, and there, look, damage though for the 61 Mustang, and that is creating a right mess. He's trying to get off the racing line. Little bit of front bumper coming off too. That's Marco Signoretti, and unfortunately that looks like that Mustang is creaking round. Will it be able to get back to the pits? And unfortunately, well, look at that front right tyre, wheel entirety not looking in good shape.
I'm not a mechanic, but I don't think it's supposed to look like that.
I don't think that's going to buff out.
No, definitely not. And it is affecting his lap times, that much I'm sure of. Into the pit lane, I'm afraid, is going to come Marco Signoretti. We're making light of this, but this is really a horrendous way to end the season for Academy. They could have been championship contenders this year. They've had the pace to win at almost every track that we've gone to, but they just haven't had the look that's required to build a championship campaign. But I really hope that Matt and Marco are back next year, because they could be GT4 championship contenders. Right, on board with Adam Balon then. He is in 6th position right now. That is Graham Davidson ahead of him. Now, Graham Davidson does not score points. So in theory, Balon is already scoring 5th place points, even if he doesn't get past the Mercedes, but it is still physically there in front of him. He needs to clear it in order to go and chase after the cars that are scoring points ahead of him. So this is an important battle. Balon, I think, is a little bit quicker, but hasn't yet been able to find a way through.
No, and I do wonder, they haven't called the safety car yet, but I do wonder if they might be tempted to, because that Porsche is still by the barriers coming down the main straight. But you've also got a huge bit, I think it's a bit of front splitter from the Mustang right on the inside coming in to the Melbourne hairpin. So I wonder if they're just going to want to think about clearing that up. But at the moment, no such messages from race control as we ride on board with Balon in that Lamborghini right up behind Davidson for 5th place. Currently, of course, that number 20 car not eligible for points, so Balon would get shuffled up come the end of things, but he's going to want to try and get through and then get a hurry on to try and catch 4th place Halstead.
With the position that Loggie is in right now, only a win would be good enough for the Barwell car. They need to get to the front of the pack, and that's assuming Loggie doesn't make any more places up. But that's what they want to do, put the pressure on Loggie again, because Loggie has made a mistake under pressure before. when he had the spin at Goddard's. The first corner contact wasn't really Loggie's fault, but that spin that he had afterwards seemed to be caused by the pressure that was then put on him, having lost the time initially. If Barwell could put that pressure back on Loggie, put him in a position where he has to start gaining places, then perhaps the championship could fall their way again. They've also got Morgan Tillbrook right behind them now. That car's been the fastest on the track. It has the fastest lap. It has served a stop-go penalty, of course, for its involvement in the first lap skirmish. But that safety car has brought them right back into contention. Remember, that's the car that utterly dominated here at Donington Park. I think their winning margin was the second largest in the 30-year history of the championship. We know they can get the job done here, and they're only 6 seconds off the lead.
Absolutely, and just behind them, though, as you say, Ian Loggie is closing in on Andrew Howard in the Beechdean Aston Martin. And Andrew Howard has said, apparently, according to Bryn, he's not going to get in the way of the title battle. So, good news for Loggie once he does get onto the back of Howard, if he does get onto the back of Howard, because he's in between two championship protagonists right now. In fact, he's got all of them surrounding him at the moment as we have a look at the back of Balon, looking from on board of Tillbrook, and the 77 looking at the number 72 Lamborghini, getting oh so close, yet oh so far.
Yeah, both of them have made mistakes on this lap. Balon had one at the old hairpin, that's why the gap came down, but then Tillbrook made one, you were riding on board for it, going through the exit of Coppice, looking back there through the rear diffuser of the Lamborghini, which isn't quite as neat and tidy as it normally would be. I think he had a little bit of contact to the rear of the car in that first corner skirmish, but he now sees looming large behind him the Enduro Motorsport McLaren, which has been strong this year. They were winners at Donington earlier in the season. They snatched the victory on the final lap at Brands Hatch a few weeks ago. Can they claim a third win despite the contact, despite the penalty? Morgan Tillbrook and Marcus Clutton are not going to give in, that's for sure. We are, though, within about 15 minutes now of pit stops happening. So the last few laps, really, for these AM drivers to do the job themselves on track. And we now have to start thinking about success penalties. Before I start talking about success penalties, though, never mind, who is that off? Is that Simon Orange, or is Halstead? It's Nick Halstead. So Nick Halstead, who was running in 4th position, off the road, and I'm not entirely, I think that's on the way out of Starkeys. No, it's wherever he is. He's at the side of, oh, it's the exit of the chicane, isn't it? It's the Fox, yes, it's right, okay. So he has gone off, I suspect, through the gravel trap, and that unfortunately ends what was a promising race for them.
Such a shame for Halstead. Hopefully we'll get a proper look at how that happened, but car pointing in the right direction, but not going anywhere as it seems. There's also a few race investigations going on that will bring you. I think that Paddock Motorsport number 11 car has been given a penalty for the incident that brought out the safety car. Let's watch this fight, though, brewing between Balon and the McLaren behind. And the Enduro Motorsport McLaren just trying to get on terms with Balon. Under braking then into the Melbourne hairpin. You can see that bit of front splitter that's lying there. Here then is Halstead in the number 40 Fox Motorsport McLaren. Got back going, but you can see the right-hand side has really taken a bit of a whack from somewhere or something. The rear right and the front left as well, both showing visible damage. So a trip to the pits, I would imagine, for the that McLaren.
There is an investigation for car number 27 about a safety car restart. That's Matt Topham, championship leader in GT4. It's only an investigation right now, but we'll see if anything comes of that. There was a team manager being summoned, but in all of the things that were kicking off at the time.
Yes, that was the Team Rocket.
That was Rocket. Okay.
So I imagine that probably when Simon Watts got into a bit of trouble coming out the final corner with that Porsche, I imagine that might be over that, but can't confirm that.
I had forgotten about that. That was all of 10 minutes ago, and I had forgotten about it.
It all happened in the space of a few laps, didn't it? As we get into the finer details of this British GT finale, the Enduro Motorsport McLaren right up behind as well. Balon, who is desperately trying to find a way through, because at the moment he has to get into those podium positions. He really has to go for that win to stand a chance of taking home the title with Sandy Mitchell today.
Yes, he does. It's not going terribly well right now for Adam Balon. He was all over the back of Graham Davidson a couple of laps ago, and now he's 2 seconds adrift of the Mercedes, and under big pressure here from the Enduro McLaren, which fires itself off the chicane really well, looks to the inside line, and this surely is Tillbrook through into 5th position. Late on the brakes for Balon. There's a bit of Ford Mustang, I think that is, that's been left in the road, but Balon actually manages to hang on. That was impressive braking on the outside line. Adam Balon able to brake later and carry on. Nick Halstead's been in and out of the pit lane, so the Fox Motorsport McLaren is out of the way and back in the race.
And according to Bryn, he had a spin end at the chicane, hit the wall, but now back out on track. Nick Halstead in that McLaren. So all of his own doing by the sounds of things, unfortunately for that number 40 McLaren, but back out on track after a few repairs.
Okay, then on board with Morgan Tillbrook. Richard Neary, by the way, holds a 1.7 second lead over Simon Orange, who's got Darren Leung and Graham Davidson right behind him. So a three-way fight for the overall race leader. But except it's not. That's Richard Neary. The race leader is slow now, coming out of Redgate. That previous lap, he dropped nearly a second to Simon Orange. I suspected that was just traffic, but there is a problem for Richard Neary. And for the second race in a row from the lead, they are in trouble and out of the race. Now, this time it happens with over an hour to go, but that car is pulled off on the side of the road. I just caught a glimpse of a slow car coming out of Redgate corner, and it was the race leader. So Simon Orange now inherits the race lead on his debut in the championship, but it's a three-way fight for the lead with Darren Leung and Graham Davidson right behind him.
Disaster for the Neary Mercedes. Driver's side door open. Race done. They weren't in the championship challenge, but they were in the battle for the win. And there's the Team Brit car doing perhaps what Nick Halstead had done just a few moments ago and spinning around in the chicane. Thankfully, the Team Brit number 68 car avoiding the wall and looks like he's able to get back up and running again. But a little bit of a worry there. And Neary, though, we're hearing losing drive from the lead. So something drivetrain related seems to have just gone, nope, not having it, and broken on that Mercedes. And he is out of that car, and that is race done. And, well, no safety car being called as of yet.
It's a long way off the track, I suppose, and it's rare
but
that a car
Porsche
ends
is
up
still there as well.
It is, you're right, actually. They've just left that up against the pit wall. I suppose it is.
And that bit of front splitter that we saw Balon, it's whack, coming into the Melbourne chicane. So I would have thought they might want to clean that up. But no, nothing yet with an hour and 9 to go.
Absolutely. I mean, and there are bits of polystyrene everywhere, and there are bits of gravel everywhere, and bits of debris at the chicane.
Beautiful Donington Park.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, we're not going to forget this championship decider in a hurry, are we? Right, this is now for the lead of the race. Let's forget championships for a second, because none of these three cars are in the fight for the championship. Two of them don't even score points. The McLaren that leads and the Mercedes in third position. But there are some really great stories here. Simon Orange, his debut in the championship, is leading. Darren Leung in second. It's his debut in the championship. And in third place, the returning Graham Davidson, who hasn't really found a home to settle in this year, been subbing for a number of different drivers in a number of different teams. This is a rather tasty fight for the race lead, and for a second or two here, Harry, we can put the calculators down and just enjoy a good old-fashioned motor race.
We knew whatever the case was, we'd get some good racing here at Donington Park, and it's certainly playing out nicely for us. Graham Davidson is having a brilliant race so far as well. He just sits behind. He's not in this championship battle, but he is in third and could play havoc with the cars in front of him too, with Leung just in front of that BMW and Simon Orange then leading on debut in the British GT Series. But they all check up coming into the final corner. The Mercedes nearly going right into the back of the BMW. So that McLaren really checked up right into the final corner. He's allowed a little bit of a gap, nearly a second, as they try and manoeuvre the number 7 Mercedes out of the way. That is further in the glance. That's the Motors one there, but some GT3s trying to make their way through on the GT4. The stricken, what once was our race leader to the right of picture, now done. We saw Balon coming through there. This is good for him, and that Lamborghini can close up and try and get through into the podium. Is that a slow 24 McLaren? No, it's not. It's just being manoeuvred through as Leung comes through in the 91 BMW.
Yes, that car's been in the wars, hasn't it? So I wonder if maybe Andre Borodin is struggling with a problem. Yes, lots to cover. 10-second stop-go penalty for car 2. That's Simon Watts after the contact with Orton coming out of the final corner. That's not the most shocking bit of news you'll hear today. You're right about Balon as well. This brings him into 4th position. But as I said, 2 of the cars ahead of him aren't scoring, so that's actually second-place points that Balon would be on course for right now. Morgan Tillbrook, though, has just got ahead of him, so that's already out of date. He's down into now 3rd-placed points, if you see what I mean. But if he can get up there towards the front, then that does rather put the pressure on Ian Loggie, who at the moment is just about doing enough for the championship. There you can see Morgan Tillbrook is now ahead of Adam Balon. Enduro could win this race, Harry. I'm convinced of it. They are right up there. Yes, they've got a success penalty to worry about, but they've clearly got the pace.
They clearly do, and I think Balon has realised that in the Lamborghini and is almost deciding to follow him through as he goes. This is also playing into Ian Loggie's hands as well. As you say, he is still doing that just enough as Leon has a dive down the inside to get through on a GT4 car. So that splits second and third with a GT4 car in the middle at the moment for Davidson to try and get through. But Loggie will also be promoted 2 positions from those guest drives, not scoring any points. So that's more points in the bag for Loggie. What a turnaround from what was a disaster. But it's Simon Orange who leads in that McLaren, then Leon in the BMW. Then comes the battle for third that we're seeing unfold with the Mercedes Davidson, then Tillbrook in the McLaren, and then this Lamborghini, the number 72 of Adam Balon.
Yes, so the number 72 car will have a 15-second success penalty to serve, 10 seconds extra for the BMW as well. That's worth factoring in because that's the highest placed point-scoring car at the moment, and there will be 20 seconds for the Enduro McLaren. So the picture at the front of the field is going to change significantly after the pit stops. This was the change for 4th position. Morgan Tillbrook, tighter line through Coppice. A bit of a moment there actually for Balon. That Lamborghini doesn't look very planted right now, does it? It wobbled out wide after it had hit the curb, and it opened the door very nicely there for Morgan Tillbrook to go through, and he is already, I think, here starting to catch the race leaders. That is Nick Halstead going a lap down to the race leaders. So Halstead had actually stayed on the lead lap, I think, after his spin, but he's now gone a lap down, and his pace has sort of evaporated since he had that moment.
Yeah, and also trouble, though, for the Enduro Motorsport car, the number 77 being given a black and white flag. Track limits warning. That is their 4th and final warning before any penalties will be imposed. So you say they could well win this race. Well, they've got to keep it on the black stuff.
They do reset, though, I think, at the top of the hour. I think they reset the track limits warning. So, because in fairness, I'm hearing now, though, that the clerk of the course has said that is their final warning in the race, so it will not get reset, clearly. So that's a bit of wrong information I was giving you there. Anyway, Simon Orange leading the way, 8/10 his advantage, but that's ebbing and flowing in the traffic over Darren Young, who, as I said, has a 10-second success penalty to serve. 3rd position then for Davidson, Tillbrook in 4th place, and Adam Balon in 5th position. But Tillbrook now with this track limits warning hanging over him. Apparently, because it's a 2-hour race, you get 4 warnings, and on your 5th warning, you get a drive-through. So these are rules that are different for the 2-hour race, for example, than it would be in the 3-hour races that we've had earlier on in the season. Our racing is Aston Martin coming through there. That's the car that runs at the moment 3rd in GT4, a class that's still being led comfortably by the Toyota. Meanwhile, that is a bit of a close moment for the race leader there. Simon Orange almost tripping over the 2nd placed GT4 car, and that brings the lead gap right down.
It certainly does as well. There's a little bit of late on the brakes, though. Can Simon Orange get it turned in? The 91 getting up close and personal right onto the main straight. Here we go then. Was that a mistake from Orange? Can Leung try and find a way around the outside coming into turn 1? He just about holds on to it, though, into turn 1. But that McLaren under huge pressure.
Yes, he is, and this brings Graham Davidson right back into it as well. Down the Craner curves they will head. It's the 37th lap of the race, and we're within 5 minutes of these drivers going into the pit lane. I don't want them to, though, because this is a brilliant battle, and I'm thoroughly enjoying watching it. We'll break away from this very, very quickly, though, to give you some significant news in the GT4 class. A penalty is being handed out to our championship leaders, Matt Topham, for overtaking under the safety car. This will have been on the safety car restart. Remember, I mentioned this a while ago, and that is going to be a huge hit in their championship hopes, and that is going to double now the difficulty of Darren Turner's job in his stint. So that's going on in GT4, whilst we've got a heck of a scrap going on in GT3, and look at the way that Tillbrook's closing.
He's closing and closing as fast as he ever has done as well. The top 4 really battling it out, and Balon just trying to hang on further back, but he's got a bit of ground to make up as that Lamborghini, who was really following Davidson through at one point. Here comes Davidson, though, down the inside of the Enduro Motorsport McLaren, having a great scrap into the Melbourne hairpin. Who's going to get out on top? Coming at exit, drag race to the next corner, side by side. Orange still has it over Leung. Then comes Davidson through on that number 77 Enduro McLaren.
You can see the way Tillbrook's been closing, 1.6 seconds faster on the 34th lap, then about half a second quicker the next lap, 3/4 of a second quicker on the next, and he's going to have a go now into Redgate corner. Looks up the inside, they're both braking about the same time, but Tillbrook will roll off the brakes. He's got the inside line, the shorter route through the corner, but Davidson has the traction on the outside line to stay level on the exit, down the Craner curves. very difficult to run side by side through here, and Davidson will hang on to the place for now. This is delaying Tillbrook, it's allowing the top two to break away slightly more, and that means that Simon Orange and Darren Leung can breathe a sigh of relief, because as and when Tillbrook does get past the Mercedes, I think he's got the pace to arrive on the tail of the leaders very quickly afterwards.
Yeah, and just further back in GT4, it is still Edgar in that Toyota GR Supra leading by a fair whack, really, from Richard Williams in that Audi, sharing that with Sennan Fielding, and maybe perhaps that Topham penalty coming as news to their ears. So we get one of our first pit stops, and it looks like a driver change going on. Mo Ritson will be getting into that number 26 Paddock Motorsport car down in GT4.
Oh, the lead GT4 almost tangling there with Darren Leung as they went through the chicane, and that really delays the BMW. And so here comes Graham Davidson. He looks to the inside. Is this his chance to take second place? No, because that bit of debris has been left on the inside line. The prime overtaking opportunity on the circuit is sort of out of commission because of that, because you dangle the inside. You don't want to run over whatever that is that's lying on the right-hand side of the track. Simon Orange now with a bit more of a gap because of that fumble in traffic, but within another couple of laps, the GT3 drivers will have hit their minimum driver time, and they will be diving for the pit lane because the teams understandably want to get their quicker pros in the car as soon as they can. That's already happening within GT4s. We've seen a handful of them coming in. The Paddock McLaren we saw coming in for its driver change, and we'll wait and see how that all sorts itself out once the various success penalties are applied.
Well, getting to that hour mark then. Orange still leading out in front, and here then comes the second place in the GT4. Currently as it stands, they're looking pretty at the top of the standings though, trying to overcome that lead from Topham and Darren Turner. So Sennan Fielding will be getting into that grey Audi, and Richard Williams will be getting out, and it was a pretty decent first stint for Richard Williams there, and I think he'd be happy with that as he has a look on, and we wait for Sennan Fielding to get out in that Audi.
Yeah, whilst they're refueling the car, they can't touch it, so they haven't changed the tyres yet. You can see the mechanic there with the newer Pirelli tyre ready to go on. You also can't do your driver change, but you can do that at the same time as the tyre change is going on. That's what's happening now at Newbridge, because Matt Topham is out, Darren Turner is in. Now, they were way too far behind the Audi to actually be able to get back ahead of them after the pit stops, even before this drive-through penalty was applied. Of course, Newbridge can't serve that drive-through penalty during the pit stop. They have to come back in again, so that's going to take them well down the order. The danger team now in GT4 is going to be R Racing. Very often this year, R Racing have popped up at the end of the race, and it's a bit of a where did they come from situation. I think that's going to happen again, and remember, a good result for them, coupled with a poor result for Newbridge and Steller, could give them the championship. Back into the race comes the Paddock GT4 McLaren, and what a brilliant moment to rejoin the track just as the race leaders come through.
Oh, that pit lane exit scares me sometimes when these GT4 cars are coming out and they're greeted by the GT3 cars right onto the racing line. Thankfully though, Mo Ritson able to keep his Paddock Motorsport McLaren out of the way of the GT3 leaders. He's in his own battle further down in GT4, so he'll focus on his own race, and he was the first one to get in for a driver change down in GT4. They were straight in, and here is the GT4 leader. Tom Edgar comes in, and it'll be Collard who will get into that Toyota. But a lot of smoke going down there for the number 27 McLaren in the pit lane. What is going on? Is that a little fire breaking out from one of the brake discs? It's the Matt Topham car.
Yeah, now, Newbridge Motorsport lost a race win here at Donington last year because they had a brake fire during the pit stop, and it was the front left corner then as well, I'm sure. So whatever it is, they seem to have kept it under control. It's probably just brakes overheating. There'll be a bit of debris perhaps that's got stuck inside there in the brake system, and that's now getting very hot because there's no cool air coming through. They've got the fire extinguisher ready, and they will send them back on their way, but that is history repeating itself in Newbridge. They've had that problem here at Donington before, and this race now starting to unravel a little bit for the GT4 Championship leaders. Pit stop done here at Steller, but they have to wait now for this minimum pit stop time to elapse, which is 140 seconds for the GT4 cars, plus any success penalties, plus the extra 26 seconds for Silver Cup. Right, GT3's now diving for the pit lane, Harry, and I spotted there, yes, the race leader is in, so Simon Orange in, Morgan Tillbrook as well, Adam Balon I spotted was in the Lamborghini. Interestingly, Leung and Davidson, no staying out.
Yeah, no, leader Simon Orange was the first to pit out of our lead trio or quartet that was going on. Balon. So that allows Leon in his BMW to take over the lead ahead of Gray and Davison in that Mercedes. Again, a reminder, Davison not actually eligible to score any points in this round, so he is out there having the race of his life right now, purely for himself and his team. But pit lane getting very busy indeed. Orange in, Tillbrook in, Balon also in. That allows Howard in the Aston Martin, the Beach Team AMR team, to get up into third overall currently, once the pit stops shake themselves out. But I wonder if Leon and Davidson are just hoping that they can make up a bit more time coming with fast laps now that Orange is out of their way with a bit more track time on hand. But of course, success penalty still to play out.
No success penalty though for Ian Loggie, so he will be in there simply for 110 seconds. That's from pit entry line to pit exit line. It's not necessarily the stationary time. All of this means that this is temporarily the fight for the race lead. Darren Leung and Graham Davidson. Leung, remember, has a 10-second success penalty to serve at the pit stops. 15 extra seconds for the number 72 Lamborghini and 20 for the Enduro McLaren. So one of the cars that's set to gain out of all of this is the number 20 Mercedes, and it, along with the BMW, will dive for the pit lane a lap later than the rest of the GT3s. And here you can see how congested it gets in there. The Toyota, only now leaving, had to park itself at a very odd angle just to try and stay out of the way.
Yeah, the mechanics probably having to get that up on the jacks and twist it round while they were working on the car just to try and fit in between both the Ian Loggie Mercedes and I think the Balon Lamborghini as well, as they come in for their stops. A little bit of a clean of the wipers as well for that number 72 Lamborghini. We'll wait and see how it all plays out before we give you a proper results running order, because this will all change as they come back out and onto the checkered flag. But look at how tight it is between Loggie and Balon coming out of the pit lane exit, nearly side by side, and Loggie just about wins out.
I know exactly the conversation Barwell will be having now about unsafe releases. Oh, the door is open on the Enduro McLaren. Now, can they get that shut? It's Marcus Clutton who has just taken over that car. Sandy Mitchell in the green Lamborghini. Jules Gounon now in the Ram Racing Mercedes that scoots off ahead of them. I think Marcus Clutton managed to save that situation. The door now seems to be secure, and as long as there's no penalty for that, he should be okay. So, as Harry said, we'll get a look at the race order in another lap or so once the timing system sorts itself out. But right now you can see that 3 of our title contenders are absolutely together on the track, but crucially it is Gounon who has the track position advantage now.
Yeah, those drivers taking over, of course. It was Loggie exiting the pit. He handed over, as you say, to the French ace, that is Jules Gounon, the number 76 McLaren, also making its way out of the garage after their change. The Enduro Motorsport McLaren on track further round, right up behind the 72 car, trying to find a way through the Aston Martin for good company as well. And there's the issue right now, down the inside into the Melbourne hairpin. That bit of front splitter bodywork from that Mustang still lying there. I think it's preventing us from seeing some decent racing there, but smoke coming off the back of that Lamborghini with a bit of bodywork rubbing against the tyre.
I think there was contact from Clutton. I think Clutton just nosed into the back of the Lamborghini and it's pushed the bodywork onto the right rear tyre. This is a big, big drama for Sandy Mitchell, second in the championship, and that's an awful lot of tyre smoke. This could be an extra pit stop required to get that sorted. Up the inside goes Marcus Clutton, but I think there was a touch between the two of them at the hairpin, and that could have just ruined the championship for Sandy Mitchell. He's flashing the lights at Marcus Clutton to let him know he's not happy about any of that, and why would he be? But that surely is too much smoke for them to just leave it. I think there's only going to be one winner there in the battle between bodywork and rubber.
It's not gone their way, although the smoke has now suddenly died down a bit. So has that bit of bodywork broken off? Yeah. I think that might just have saved the day for Sandy Mitchell and that Lamborghini team. Now, Ian Loggie out of the car in that pink Mercedes. His championship challenge is now in the hands of Jules Gounon, currently in second place, just behind Darren Neal. So that's really worked out quite well then for the now Gounon car, who is in charge of trying to seal the deal for Ian Loggie.
Yes, because of course it's the drivers who score points in British GT, not the cars, and Gounon's had to miss a few races because of his international racing commitments. So Alex McLeod has come in to sub for him basically earlier on in the year, and so that's why Loggie has more points than Gounon, hence why he, if that car does win the championship, will be the sole recipient of the championship trophy. And right now they're in a position to do that. Jules Gounon running in 4th position right now, and I think that will now perhaps become 3rd position, because in fact it's 2nd place, so Darren Leung leads the way 5.7 seconds the gap back to Jules Gounon, who has just set the fastest lap of the race, 6/10 quicker than the leader. If you'd have told me 20 or so minutes ago, Harry, that that number 6 car was going to be chasing down the lead in second position, I think I'd have laughed in your face. I don't quite know how they've done it, but they have dug themselves out of one heck of a hole.
Well, I know this is my first time doing British GT, but even I was astounded by that as well, and I wasn't quite sure how he'd got there as well. Jules Gounon definitely up into second. It's Alexander Sims who now leads in the BMW M4 GT3. 5.7 seconds the gap he has over Jules Gounon. Two very, very good top-level drivers, both linked with manufacturers, driving the BMW and Mercedes respectively, currently leading away. 52 minutes nearly left of this race.
This incident, by the way, is under investigation. The slight bit of, I mean, it's tiny, tiny contact as they go through the hairpin, and then the bodywork starts to foul against the tyre. This is on board now with Mitchell. Looking back at Marcus Clutton, whose team manager, by the way, has just been summoned to race control, just sort of wipes the nose of the McLaren across the back of the Lamborghini. It's the kind of contact, Harry, that in a touring car race or something, you wouldn't even notice, but these GT cars, with all of their aerodynamic bits and pieces, it can do some serious damage.
It's the slightest of kisses, isn't it, really? The car didn't even move in front, and then suddenly you just see the smoke billowing out from that bit of carbon fibre, rubbing against the tyre. Luckily, it broke off, but that did allow the 77 of Clutton through on the 72 of Mitchell, so he lost out while he was trying to deal with the smoke billowing out from that tyre and bodywork damage. But good news, he's still out there running, didn't have to come in for another pit stop to fix that issue.
Fastest lap of the race set by Michael O'Brien in the number 67 car that was leading and is now 7th and 19 seconds off the race lead. Answers on a postcard as to how that happened. They had no success penalty to serve because they're a new driver. They're a new team to the championship, of course. They hadn't picked up a success penalty from a previous race. There must have been a drama for the Orange Racing powered by JMH team. So I wonder whether Bryn Lucas down in the pit lane can maybe go and chase that one up, because they've lost a huge chunk of time. They're the fastest car on the track, but they're the best part of 20 seconds off the lead now.
He has, although, Bryn, filled us in on the number 72 Barwell, the tyre issue that we were seeing there with the smoke. Tyre pressure's all fine coming out from that team, so they're happy to continue on. And Jules Gounon gets a bit dicey with the GT4, well, the former GT4 leader, who is leading in GT4 at the moment. It is still that Toyota Supra, I believe. We'll get another bit of confirmation on that shortly, but Jules Gounon just trying to navigate the traffic there, 3 wide with the Enduro Motorsport McLaren on the inside. They just about all make their way through the corner.
I think that was for the GT4 lead. I think our racing have just about come out of that ahead of the Toyota. So it is Jamie Day now in the Aston Martin. Jordan Collard, whose father is watching on from the Barwell garage, on the outside line, trying to get the lead back. Now our racing need to try and win this race to win the championship. The Toyota squad aren't in the championship fight at all, but they are back ahead with a brilliant move around the outside from Jordan Collard. He's got the lead away through the Craner curves, and our racing dropped down into second place. That was a brilliant exchange, but through the pit stop cycle, as we predicted, our racing are right back in the hunt for a class win.
Yeah, great recovery from them as well, which could really flip this championship around, because Matt Topham now, Darren Turner in that Newbridge Motorsport Aston Martin, having to sort of make up all the ground that unfortunately Matt Topham lost going into this first stint of this 2-hour British GT race. So Darren Turner now at the wheel, currently down at 10th in GT4, so a lot of work to do to try and seal this championship advantage, certainly going the way at the moment of the Steller Motorsport and crucially the R Racing Aston.
Yes, indeed. Just trying to do some quick maths about the GT4 points, because I actually think that as it stands, there is a chance that R Racing have stolen the championship lead here, even with second place. They might not have to win the race, but of course there's every chance that Sennan Fielding, who runs 5th in the class, could gain some more places, and Darren Turner almost certainly will gain some more places, but Darren is 6 seconds behind the next car, which is a non-point scoring car. It's the number 62 Ford Mustang, which is then in turn a second and a half behind the number 51 car, which is 17 seconds behind the Ginetta. So realistically, Darren Turner might only be able to make 1 or 2 more positions up in this race, and they would both be, or at least one of them would be against a car that's not scoring points anyway. So the GT4 picture changing a lot as Michael O'Brien here comes up around the outside of the number 20 Mercedes. That car is now being driven by Aaron Walker, who himself had an off in qualifying yesterday, and this, Harry, is the battle for 6th place.
Yeah, going nicely as well, that number 20 all day long so far, losing out a little bit in the pit stops too. with that 67 McLaren right on the back of the number 20 Mercedes, getting a really good run through the corner, right onto the back of him. Can he find a way through, though? He's going to have to do it the long way round the outside. No, he can't hold it in. Tucks back in. Will go for the inside line. They've got to negotiate the GT4 Toyota, which gets out the way very nicely indeed. But there's contact straight away coming into the corner. They both just about keep it pointing in the right direction. The McLaren wins out, but the Mercedes coming off worse. Little bit of damage there. Can't see anything too drastic, but turning in, and that has immediately brought out the safety car.
Okay.
Not that incident, but we've not seen something clearly. Safety car out on track, or coming out on track, so that will neutralise the field. Just as that McLaren won out that battle, so hopefully we'll get a little idea as to what the safety car is being brought out for. Nothing obvious that we can see right now.
I wonder,
unless it's for debris.
Well, that's a bit of... I wonder which team that came from. That's a bit of Enduro McLaren that's on the road. I think there's just... It's the accumulation of bits of broken GT3 car. I think it's finally got to the point now where the race director says that the track needs to be cleaned up, and of course now the pit stops have all been done. We're not interfering with the race quite as much as we would be with an early safety car. It does still bunch everybody up, but at least those success penalties have all been served, and once again Ian Loggie starts to now feel his heart rate going up, because his car is going to be embroiled in a battle now. It's right on the tail of Alex Sims, who is looking for not his first victory in British GT. Let's not forget he's had success in the championship about a decade ago. We are hearing that the safety car is indeed the debris down at the chicane, and there's a concern about the barrier that was hit by Nick Holstead a while ago when he had his spin. So it is just an accumulation, I think, of debris and bits of circuit furniture that need to be seen to, and that's the reason that they've bunched everybody together. So Alex Sims then leads in GT3. Second place, Jules Gounon. That's enough for the championship for Ian Loggie as it stands, but this brings Enduro right back into it. Marcus Clutton in third position will close right in on the leaders. Sandy Mitchell in fourth, Lewis Proctor fifth, Michael O'Brien up into sixth. That was a timely move there against Aaron Walker, who is seventh. Eighth for Lewis Williamson, still on the lead lap for the number 4 Seas Mercedes. Ninth position, Ewan Hankey, and 10th for Ed Peed. There is the barrier damage we were talking about. That we think happened when Nick Holstead gave the barriers a headbutt earlier on, and that, coupled with the debris on track, is the reason for the safety car.
45 minutes then to go for this British GT finale, the Donington decider, which is where we will crown our GT3 and GT4 champions. And it has been anything but simple. Safety car out at the moment, as you can see for the bits of debris, that bit of front splitter on the inside coming into the Melbourne hairpin from, I think it was the Mustang, wasn't it, early doors. Finally, hopefully being removed, because it's right at a prime overtaking spot. We've had to see cars bailing out to avoid that. Now look at that though. At the moment, as it stands, GT4's looking tasty.
Isn't it just? At the moment, Josh Miller and Jamie Day for our racing, we're on board with them now. Second place in the class would be the British GT4 champions by a single point over Richard Williams and Sennan Fielding, and the championship leaders coming into today would lose out by 3.5 points. Now, what I will say is that this has played nicely into the hands of Darren Turner. Remember I said that he was 20 or so seconds behind the next meaningful car that he could overtake. That's no longer the case. So Darren Turner should now be able to gain some ground once we go racing again. He's going to be right on the tail of a load of silver-graded drivers who, in theory, he should be faster than. So there's a good chance this is, in fact, I'm almost certain that will change before the race is over. But as it stands, our racing are doing enough. But we're now in the situation, Harry, where a single change of position for any one of those three, either up or down, is perhaps going to give us a new championship leader.
It's going to be drastic for the outcome of that GT4 championship, which is brilliant for us, and maybe not so much for those fighting for the GT4 title and what's been a hard-fought battle so far. But these pit stops then, really changing up the order quite dramatically when you get to the nitty-gritty of it. Jules Gounon still up in second behind Sims under these safety car conditions, as the marshal doing a good job there of removing the debris from the racing line. It's brought people right back into this fight.
Absolutely, and I mean, an Alex Sims versus Jules Gounon battle for the win is something I would rather like to see. I mean, that is as good as it gets in GT racing, isn't it? Within GT4, there is Darren Turner. So the next car ahead of Darren Turner is the number 62 Ford Mustang with Will Moore at the wheel. that car doesn't score points. So he needs to clear that car straight away, and then he can start setting off after those who do. For example, the number 51 Porsche, the Voluga Racing Porsche of Benji Hetherington, that car does score points, and it's only a couple of cars further up the queue for Darren. So Darren Turner only needs to gain another couple of positions, and that car is back in a championship winning position. But what we also need to factor in is the fact that Sennan Fielding could also start to gain some positions and march his way further towards the front, because we know that Audi has some good pace in it. So this second safety car period of the race has given us a tantalising GT4 battle and a tantalising battle for the overall race victory. But at least Jules Gounon and, more to the point, Ian Loggie know that they are in a position where Loggie would be champion as it stands. And in fact, even if they lost a couple of positions, even if they lose a couple of positions, they would still be okay. There's the confirmation, 162 points for Loggie. Balon and Mitchell would still be second, with Tillbrook and Clutton up into third position, but Marcus Clutton will be chomping at the bit here to try and get a race win. And if he is going to get the win here, Harry, he has to get past Jules Gounon. And that battle will take on extra significance, because for Enduro to have a chance at the championship, they need Ram Racing to drop right to the back again. I'm not saying Clutton would ever dream of doing anything untoward, but he's not going to be backwards in coming forwards when it comes to trying to get past that pink Mercedes.
No, and you want to engage in a battle with Jules Gounon on track. You have got to be made of stern stuff as well. Just coming back to on that GT4 championship too, I'll tell you who's done well out of the pit stops. It's that Paddock Motorsport McLaren, the number 26, now with Mo Ritson at the wheel. I believe he's got into third now, so he's just in front of Sennan Fielding. So with just a few points in between the championship challengers, having someone like Mo who's not going for the championship in that Paddock McLaren, feeling bullish, wanting a podium on the board for his own campaign, well, that could get very dicey indeed.
And they could do with a good result, because they've had a pretty shocking season, really, at Paddock Motorsport. Both their GT3 and GT4 campaigns have been really affected with some bad luck and a few accidents, a few mechanical issues. They've only had one top 5 finish all season long, have that number 26 team, which came at Snetterton. And it was a 5th place finished in the second of the 2 sprint races at Snetterton a few months ago. So a podium, maybe even a class win, would be huge for them. So yeah, for sure, they're not going to back out of the fight, regardless of whether it's the championship contenders they're up against. There is the barrier damage being sorted on the exit of the chicane, the vehicle heading out of the way. The circuit workers there hopefully will be able to get out of the way quickly, but I think it will be next time round that we're able to go racing, because the field being led by the safety car out of Goddard's onto another lap, their 50th lap of the race about to begin. We've got 40 minutes left, Harry, and I still don't know what's going to happen.
Isn't that the beauty of it? Mustang front splitter update. It looks like it's been removed.
Yeah,
so that's good news. Fingers crossed. So some decent overtaking to be done down into the hairpin. And what a place to be seeing out this season finale as well, as we celebrate 30 years of the British GT Championship at the very track where it all kicked off, for the first ever British GT race taking place here in Donington Park 30 years ago. 20 years too, celebrating with intelligent money and going racing together in the final race of this 2022 season to crown a GT3 and a GT4 champion. And right now, well, it's been difficult to call it so far. Sometimes it's been all-out disaster for our championship contenders. Then suddenly a safety car comes out and you can turn it around. So fingers crossed, in these last 39 minutes, once the safety car will hopefully come back in soon, we'll get an even more action-packed last gasp into this British GT finale. And it looks like we will be going soon-ish, because that barrier work looked like it was coming towards the end of it being completed.
Yes, I hope so, because that would give us a good amount of racing still before the flag.
Safety car in this lap.
There we go, confirmation. The safety car is coming in this lap, so that's good news. I've just got a feeling that we're not done yet. I just think there's another twist in this somewhere, whether it's GT3, GT4, both, I don't know. But Donington Park always has a habit of delivering something completely unexpected at the end of the race. But let's see what's going to happen. Alex Sims then now in control of the race restart. He's done 1 or 2 of these over his very successful racing career, but he's got Jules Gounon right behind him, one of the best in the business as well. They're the lapped car, the Fox Motorsport car of Jamie Stanley, which runs in 11th place but a lap down. And then you've got the fired up Marcus Clutton, whose team manager was summoned to race control a while go. But we haven't yet heard about a penalty. Here we go then, 38 minutes left on the clock. The Donington decider. What else does it have in store for us? Across the line they go. Alex Sims brings the BMW through towards Redgate Corner, looking for that car's first victory in the UK, of course, with the Mercedes AMG behind. Jamie Stanley doing a good job there to get out of Marcus Clutton's way, another McLaren driver, but interestingly not jumping out of Sandy Mitchell's way in the Lamborghini. And whilst that all goes on, there is the GT4 lead battle. What can R Racing do? Can they get into the race lead and solidify their championship position?
Yeah, they weren't in a massive hurry to sort of get going. They were still weaving left and right to get some heat into the tyres, where Alexander Sims and Jules Gounon and in front too. Then Clutton and Mitchell just behind. Proctor was having a little look down the inside too, but nothing to be done coming into the first corner. In fact, he's having a fierce battle with O'Brien down for 5th and 6th overall at the moment. But the 62 Mustang and the number 27 Aston Martin coming down through the Craner curves and out the other side.
Turner on the attack. What can he do? Up towards McLean's. That is the Mustang ahead, which of course is laps down, remember. Or is that the 62? I didn't actually spot the number. I think it might be 62. Yes, it is. This is for position. But remember, that car not scoring points. They've got the number 24 car coming through there, which is the first car 1 lap down. Team manager of car 11 now. Paddock Motorsport being sent to race control. That car has a couple of issues, hasn't it? Let's face it, in the race. And they are some 28 laps down and may now be in a spot of bother for something. As there, Mo Ritson in the GT4 paddock car loses out to one of the GT3s. But at the front of the pack, it's tightening up nicely, particularly second to third, I would say.
And as we just see that 67 McLaren as well, of course, that had been in the lead before the pit stops with Simon Orange at the wheel. Hearing they just had a slow pit stop, and so Michael O'Brien taking over that McLaren came out in 7th, so they made up a position to 6th already. So trying to regain some track positions there for the orange McLaren, which is debuting this weekend after winning the GT Cup for both of those drivers, making the step up to British GT. Sandy Mitchell then now recovered from that bit of bodywork on the rear right tyre, setting up the smoke and blocking the visibility for those behind. Managed to shake it off after the lightest of touches and is now currently in 4th position, 3.5 seconds back though, trying to catch up to the back of Clutton. Then comes Jules Gounon, a full second at the moment off of our leader, Alexander Sims.
Lewis Williamson's safety car restart is under investigation. More news on that when we get it. This, meanwhile, the fight for 5th place. Lewis Proctor in the Beach Dean Aston Martin, and right behind him, the fired up and very rapid Michael O'Brien, who runs wide over the grass, coming out of the Fogarty S's. That almost ended in tears. That grass is still a bit damp after the rain that we had earlier on today. Michael O'Brien, who we've seen have success in McLarens in British GT before, this one-off appearance at the end of 2022. Can he get that car back onto the podium? They were definitely one of the teams to gain, having lost about 20 seconds through their pit stop, and now they are perhaps in contention to get a good result, but they need to try and clear this Aston Martin as soon as they can, because I think Michael might just be a little bit faster. Alex Sims, 1.1, nearly 1.2 seconds now clear of Jules Gounon at the front of the field. It's a further 2 seconds back, further 8/10 back to Marcus Clutton in 3rd position. Sandy Mitchell then is 2 seconds further back in 4th. And Lewis Proctor and Michael O'Brien about 1.3 seconds behind him. In GT4, it is still Collard from Day, and that gap has gone out now, Harry. 2.9 seconds between the GT4 leaders. So no matter who it is in the Toyota, it is the fastest GT4 car on the track.
Yeah, and Day going from bad to worse, but it's finding time for Darren Turner in the Aston Martin. He's quicker than the cars in front of him by a few tenths of a second, but he's still got a lot of time to catch up to the back of the Tomlinson Ginetta, which is in front of him. He's just got that down now to just under 2 seconds. So he is going slightly quicker, but he's not going quick enough to try and really regain a bit of title control for that Darren Turner Aston Martin currently, after Matt Topham came in and swapped places. We're looking at the number 67 McLaren once more. Was our race leader before the pit stops. Has a look down the inside of the 97 Beach Dean Aston Martin, racing down into the hairpin. Nice move through, with the Aston Martin's going to try and kick back on him. GT3 cars doing battle, but this time the 67 with a nice move there, winning out, but the Aston Martin is not going to give up without a fight here.
Certainly not, but I think Michael O'Brien should have the pace here. He looked quicker when he was behind the Aston, and now he is starting to get away, actually, as they come down the pit straight. Those McLarens all year long have worked very, very well in a straight line, and that makes them very difficult to overtake. Lewis
Car
Williamson, by the
4
way,
has a drive-through penalty. The safety car restart overtook before the line.
That was car number 4, I think, wasn't it? So that's Peter Daly, the clerk of the course then, the race director, who is saying that car number 4, who I was just about to mention having gained a place, is being given a penalty for overtaking before the safety car line. So that is Lewis Williamson's day, unfortunately, turning from bad to worse. Championship contenders coming into the day, but sadly they are going to fall out of contention with another penalty. Here they come. They've just got themselves up ahead of Aaron Walker's Mercedes, but it is a drive-through penalty for the safety car restart infringement for Lewis Williamson. A day that could have been a championship-winning day for this team. That looks unlikely.
Such a shame for that number 4 now on the wheels, you say, Lewis Williamson, but James Cottingham, who took the start. I mean, and what a mega start that was for the Mercedes. Crawled up through the field, challenging for the top 4 positions, and he had it all to do as well. Started way back as well in 12th right at the start of this race. So it was a brilliant recovery drive, but then unfortunately that pesky bit of Pirelli branding really putting an end to that charge and having to come into the pits to get it removed, and then unfortunately with penalties applied, that has not worked out well for the number 4 Mercedes today.
Right, this battle pack is important. Well, it's not important yet, but it will be in a few laps because of the car that's catching them. Darren Turner is catching these 4 cars pretty rapidly. The 2 Century BMWs, meanwhile, swapping places. Number 9, Chris Salkeld up the inside of number 90, Jack Brown, and that might open the door for the Vluga Porsche of Benji Hetherington. But if Darren Turner can overtake 2 of these cars and stay ahead of them, then he's champion. If he can overtake one of them, he's half a point behind the championship leader.
Track limit warning.
4th and final track limit warning that was for somebody, but this battle in GT4 is the one we need to watch. As they fall over each other, Harry, they're allowing Turner to catch up. If he passes 2 of them, he is in a championship leading position.
And you can just see Darren Turner lurking in the background. There he is, the number 27 Aston Martin. All he needs to do is pick up 2 positions from one of these cars in front of him, and that could be suddenly championship back on for the Aston Martin racer, sharing that car with Matt Topham. But at the moment, really nice scrap between these GT4 drivers.
Unless Sennan Fielding gets past Mo Ritson and he's 3/10 behind him. So Sennan Fielding could gain a place, and then that means Turner has to overtake more. So this is going to change by the lap, I think, over the final half an hour, Harry.
He's certainly closing and closing. He is faster than the cars in front by a couple of tenths. Has been
Black and white flag, car 24. Final track limit warning in the race. Car 24.
So that was car 24 with a final warning. Here is, though, as you say, that's Sennan Fielding through on Mo Ritson. So that is the battle in GT4. I think that was a 3rd overall. It is in GT4. So Sennan Fielding and the Audi through then on Mo Ritson and the McLaren, but Ritson's right up behind him in the wheel tracks. He's going to try and find a comeback here for the Paddock Motorsport racer through the chicane, side by side almost. The Audi just about winning out.
And that gives Steller the championship lead. That one overtake puts them back ahead of the Aston Martins. But of course, there is a chance that that's going to change when Turner catches that group behind. Now, the next target for Sennan Fielding is Jamie Day, who is there only a couple of seconds further up the road. There's a good chance Fielding could gain another place before the race is done. How many more will Darren Turner gain? He's almost with this group, another couple of laps, and he'll be right there with them. And this GT4 battle, which promised so much excitement at the start of the race, is more than delivering.
Right, he's got 29 minutes to make some magic happen, and if anyone can, Darren Turner might well. It could be certainly coming down to the final few laps for Darren Turner to try and make these moves last. He's certainly had work to do since taking over from Matt Topham. It wasn't a great first stint, just struggling with outright pace, but you almost need the Jaws theme music here to try and see Darren Turner just slowly reeling in these GT4 cars in front. Now, they were quite ferociously battling. It all seems to now just split out a little bit, which is not great news for Darren Turner. He wants them fighting and scrapping, so it slows them down and he can catch up, but still going strong in that 27 McLaren. He is faster, you can see, than Tomlinson in front.
Car 62, black and white flag, final track limit warning. 56 and 62.
There we go. So you heard the numbers there from Peter Daly regarding those that are now on final track limits warnings. I think Darren Turner needs to get past 3 of these cars now. I think he needs to get 6th place as it stands, with the Steller car running now in a podium place. Now, he's got the pace to do that, but it's not just a case of catching them, is it? He's got to be able to find a way past. And we've seen from previous races that for example, Freddie Tomlinson in that Ginetta is not an easy man to overtake, an easy young man to overtake. Meanwhile, GT3, look at the way that Michael O'Brien has caught up to Sandy Mitchell here, Harry. 4th place could be in the offing here for the McLaren.
This Balon Motorsport car has really been in the fight all day long so far, trying to keep track of those in front. This battle brewing nicely. Alexander Sims still leads in that BMW, 1.3 seconds the gap. Then comes the Mercedes, the McLaren, and then the Lamborghini just in front at the moment of the 67 McLaren, and they're bringing along the number 40. Oh, a little bit of a twitch coming into the Melbourne hairpin for the 67, but no harm done. Manages to get it turned in, lost a little bit of time coming out there, but at the moment Sandy Mitchell looks like he's better on the exit of the corners, but then actually the McLaren behind just closes up under braking.
Yeah, this is the thing. They're both mid-engined GT3 cars, but they both generate their lap times slightly differently. The McLaren's always been good down the straights. The Lamborghini are always good through the medium-speed corners, and that's what Donington Park is made up of, really. And it's why Lamborghinis have gone well here in the past. Lewis Williamson, by the way, has been in to serve that penalty, so he has lost a few more positions now. Aaron Walker moving into 7th, with Hankey into 8th in the 76 McLaren. It's the 67 McLaren that is on the attack here. Michael O'Brien has caught Sandy Mitchell, but hasn't yet found a way through. Now back to the GT4 battling, and Darren Turner is almost on the tail now of Freddie Tomlinson, excuse me, and Jack Brown. So 2 places in the offing here for Turner, and the pace he's got, Harry, I don't expect this to take him long.
And also the car in front, Tomlinson in the 56, is on a last warning for track limits too. So not that Darren Turner will be wanting to pray and hope that he does go over the white lines, but that is something that plays into Turner's hands. But he is right up on the back of them both. Clearly the faster car right now, the number 90, trying to find a way through to keep them both behind. The Century Motorsport BMW leads the little trio. Darren Turner in the Aston Martin. This is crucial crunch time for the British racer to make a move and make it stick.
Down towards Redgate Corner, is this where the move comes? He feints to the inside, but ultimately is a little bit too far back. He's not going to make that work into turn number 1. They are allowing here Hetherington and Salkeld to break away. They're 3 seconds clear. This is how it stands then. So it's 164 points for Williams and Fielding, 160.5 for Miller and Day, and 157 for Topham and Turner. So I think my maths are right. I think he needs 6th, and he currently runs 9th, but he's got a mega run out of the old hairpin, and Freddie Tomlinson pulls to the right-hand side. It looks like he's getting out of the way, but actually that's because he wants the inside defensive line into McLean's to keep the Ginetta ahead. Darren Turner is a patient man. He knows that forcing the issue here could end in tears, but he's got 25.5 minutes left in this race to gain the places. He can't really afford to be patient anymore.
No, he really can't. He's got to be bullish. A little bit of the front end just twitching out from underneath him as he comes through the right-hander, but he is right on the back, and the engineers and mechanics willing him on as well. He's going to have the outside line going into the next braking zone. The 56 holds on through the chicane, and unfortunately, no move to be done there.
Thought Turner was going to get the switch back there, but actually didn't get off the chicane terribly well. The Ginetta always has changed direction well. Looming large in the mirrors, by the way, are our overall race leaders. As if this wasn't exciting enough, they're about to catch this battle, and that could affect things, both within the GT4 and GT3 fight, because look at the way Jules Gounon is closing in on Alex Sims in the background. 1 second is the margin between those two. It's coming down gradually, and they're about to catch this big, big knot of traffic. There goes the GT4 battle, and in the background, look, the bigger GT3 BMW is the overall race leader. There, Hetherington peaks to the inside of Chris Salkeld, can't quite get past him into Redgate Corner, and that just loses him some momentum on corner exit as well.
It certainly does. Down through the grain of curves they come. You can just see how quickly that BMW changes its turn of pace through the corners, but this is all looking like it's shaping up to be a frantic final 24 minutes. Down the inside of Turner goes our race leader Alexander Sims, who makes his way through. This is actually sort of helping Sims a little bit because he's navigating the traffic just that little bit better, I think, than Jules Gounon. I think Gounon's coming across these GT4 cars at the wrong moments, and Sims just getting a few tenths here and there. Gounon will have a decent time to get past the Century Motorsport BMW, and he does so into the right-hander. So after all that, about a second or so between the two leaders in GT3 at the moment.
That didn't help Darren Turner, did it, though? He's dropped back away from Tomlinson now, so that just puts that battle on ice for the time being. I had a feeling that would have an effect of some sort, the leaders coming through, and it did. It's delayed Turner. He's taking another lap now, probably, to get back onto terms with Freddie Tomlinson, and he doesn't have that many laps, that many minutes left to go in order to get himself into this championship fight properly. Down the inside there goes Sandy Mitchell and Michael O'Brien, still in the same order, interestingly, so Sandy Mitchell hanging on to that 4th place.
Now, Darren Turner's clever here. He'll try and stick with them as much as he possibly can, or he'll hope that those in front of Turner in the GT4 class will struggle being overtaken by these GT3 leaders, and that will then give Turner a little bit more Turner pace to try and get caught up and back into the fight for the GT4 title. But nice and smoothly all through, no contact, always good to see, but for Turner it was more pain than gain.
Yeah, didn't really work out for him, that, did it? But in the end, none of the positions changing, either in GT3 or 4. Alex Sims' advantage over Jules Gounon came down to 0.8 of a second. This, meanwhile, is Sennan Fielding on the tail of the 2nd place GT4 car. A defensive move is made by Jamie Day, the R-Racing Aston Martin team, who are seeing their title just slip away. As it stands, they're 3.5 points behind the Audi. They need to stay in front of it on the track to have any hope of the title. Out of coppice they go then. Jamie Day really looking like he's struggling now. This car was involved in a collision in practice with one of the GT3 cars, and it could be involved in a collision with the GT4 Audi, because on the inside looks Sennan Fielding. That was a low percentage move that was not worth the risk, and thankfully he realised that just in the nick of time.
They both lived to fight another day. That could have been championship done, and now they have to put it on ice for a little bit because Alexander Sims is coming through in the GT3 lead and Jules Gounon. But look, while that's unfolding side by side, the 2 GT4 cars through the Melbourne hairpin, now side on, door to door. Sennan Fielding trying to find a way through on Jamie Day in the 23 Aston Martin, and the Enduro Motorsport McLaren. That's a GT3 car trying to find its way through too.
Oh, Sennan Fielding gets squeezed out, but he's got the run. He's got the run on the Aston Martin, pulls to the left-hand side. He's got momentum on his side, but he's on the outside line. It doesn't matter. He's cleared him. Sennan Fielding, 2nd place in GT4, now belongs to the championship leading, provisionally at least, Audi R8 of Steller Motorsport, and a stellar drive that was from Sennan Fielding. It was on the cards that for the best part of a lap or so, but finally, he saw his chance. He used the GT3 cars to his advantage, and he moves into 2nd in the class. That's 27 points going their way, and it means that Turner has to overtake more cars now in order to have a chance of taking the championship from them.
Turner was given a little bit of a reprieve, a little bit of hope, but fortunately for Sennan Fielding, it's going in the Audi 42's way. He's going to have to let the GT3 cars come through. That's the 67, and then Sandy Mitchell as well, making their way through in their battle that continues to rage on for the top 5, currently GT3. But now that gap starting to extend between the 2 GT4 cars, so we'll switch focus to GT3 here.
Well, we've had the change, haven't we? O'Brien ahead of Mitchell now, 4th place to the McLaren, down to 5th goes the Lamborghini, and so for Sandy Mitchell and Adam Balon now, it's turning into a bit of a race to forget. Barwell Motorsport and Donington Park do not have a long and happy relationship, let's be honest, and unfortunately it's another slightly sub-optimal run here at Donington for Barwell. They were quick earlier on, but from the very first corner they were on the back foot with their involvement in the first corner collision, which so nearly took Ian Loggie out of the race, and as it stands, he is now 20 minutes away from being crowned the Intelligent Money British GT champion. His car is 9/10 of a second away from the race lead. I sort of get the feeling, though, that Gounon isn't that desperate to go up and take this victory away from Alex Sims. He'd love to win the race, of course he would, but the championship for Ian Loggie is the objective. That is Gounon's job today.
Car 56, drive-through penalty, 5th track limit offence, drive-through penalty, car 56.
That's significant. That is Freddie Tomlinson in the Ginetta. So, too many track limits warnings, and it gets one of those cars out of Turner's way.
But unfortunately, Sennan Fielding has also made up position, so it's kind of null point for Turner. But still, it gets one car out of his way, and you never know. 20 minutes left, just under, of this race remaining. And still, things to be decided. There is this battle, so that number 56 Ginetta will have to come in and take its penalty, so that will unleash the number 27 of Darren Turner. Confirmation there from race control of a drive-through penalty for track limits. So, used up all of its chances, I'm afraid, has that number 56 Ginetta.
Now, that will put Turner 8th. I think he needs 5th to win the championship, so he would have to get past both of the BMWs ahead of him and the Porsche of Hetherington too, and that would then be enough, I think. But that's a big old ask, isn't it? The sooner the Ginetta comes into pit, the better for Darren, because then his true performance can be unlocked again in clean air, and he can start chasing down the cars ahead. Up the inside there goes Lewis Williamson. Turner trying to get this done on the track. He, I'm sure, will have been told by the team about the penalty coming the way of the Ginetta, but the Ginetta has 3 laps to serve that penalty. It doesn't have to come in straight away. I suspect it probably will, but in theory it could still be there in front of Turner for a number of laps yet, and that's why Darren wants to get the job done on the track. But in does come Freddie Tomlinson, and that's at least 1 place gained for Darren Turner.
Yeah, Tomlinson put the left indicator on as well, just letting Turner know he was going to come in, I think. So Turner didn't try any moves coming into the final corner that may have seen them both end up with damage. So then that Ginetta comes in for its penalty due to track limits. Here he is, and unfortunately straight back out again. Penalty served, but Darren Turner unleashed. But unfortunately, Turner's having to look more behind him than he is in front, because that's the number 11 behind him, isn't it? It's the Paddock Motorsport car, the GT3 car, that had a huge amount of damage and caused our first safety car. They obviously did manage to fix the front left of that McLaren and send it back out purely for some seat time. So Martin Plowman at the wheel of that, but they're out of any real contention. But good to see them back out on track. There's your race leaders, though, just on track briefly, and that could be the champion come the end. Alexander Sims and Jules Gounon so close on track now, and their teammates, championship challengers, having a good old chinwag.
Yeah, that's Adam Balon there, stood chatting to Ian Loggie. Balon's been in this position before, fighting for a championship. He was again today. It looks good for Ian Loggie, but Jules Gounon cannot get carried away here. Second place is enough for the championship. He's not under any threat from behind, but he seems to be quicker than Alex Sims right now. So if he gets sort of goaded into this fight with the BMW, then that has the potential to go wrong. Now, the good news is these are 2 of the best professional GT drivers in the world, so they should be able to keep it clean. But even so, Ian Loggie is probably sat in the garage right now wishing that Jules Gounon would just settle back a little bit and settle for second place.
All the risks that could have been taken, I think, were taken when Ian Loggie was at the wheel.
Yes.
So they would be hoping, as you say, for a nice, clean final 15 minutes. But Jules Gounon and Alexander Sims battling it out for the lead in British GT. Absolutely, yes, please. Fantastic stuff around this Donington Park track as we ride on board now with Jules Gounon, who's been looking cool, calm, and collected all weekend long so far. No reason why he wouldn't be. He's got the pressure, of course, of his teammate Ian Loggie sealing the driver's title, but Jules Gounon, a champion in multiple GT formats, knows how to string a race car around the track.
I suspect, though, that the fastest car of these leading 3 on this lap will be that one, the Enduro Motorsport car, Marcus Clutton. Let's see, yeah, personal best lap. It's a 1:27.9 for the leader, 28.0 for Gounon, 27.6 for Marcus Clutton. So the top 3 are now covered
Car
by only a second and a
76,
half.
black and white flag, final warning for track limits, car 76.
76 then being given its final track limits warning. That's Ewan Hankey, who in the recent past has got himself ahead of Lewis Proctor's Aston Martin into 6th place, but in doing so perhaps has exceeded track limits once too often. Track number 76 has also just been, yes, we just said that, didn't we, been given its final track limits warning. So 1 more and it's a penalty headed their way, and that would be a shame. It's been a good drive actually from the 76 team to move now into the top half dozen.
This gap is coming down between Gounon and Sims, and Clutton as well. Now half a second between the top 2. Jules Gounon, well, I think he fancies the win here, you know. Alexander Sims is going to be a tough competitor to get past, and has been driving fantastically in that number 91 BMW M4 for Century Motorsport. And it's BMW versus Mercedes versus McLaren then, out in front. The win up for grabs, and championship challengers fighting it out for the overall crown as well.
There are always, in any GT racing championship, grumblings about balance of performance. But look at this, we've got a BMW, a Mercedes and a McLaren. Nothing to choose between them, nothing in the lap times whatsoever. This is why we have balance performing in GT racing. It gives us this brilliantly close racing between cars that actually on the road wouldn't be that similar to each other in performance, but the race versions of them are almost identical in pace. 28.1 for the leader, 28.1 for Gounon, 27.8 for Marcus Clutton, but he is in slightly clearer air than Gounon, so it's perhaps unsurprising that he's a little bit quicker. Clear track for now as well, no traffic around. I suspect that the defining moment of this race, Harry, will be as and when they catch a bit more GT4 traffic, because that's the opportunity that Gounon and Clutton are looking for to try and make some moves.
Yeah, while they can get to a smooth groove of it with clear track in front of them, it's, well, fairly even stands with the top 3. But as you say, when they're going to have to navigate that traffic, especially when you get into the GT4 battles, which have sort of tapered out a little bit, although Darren Turner now, I think, just within a second of the number 90 BMW in front of him. I think that's Will Burns at the wheel. So he's got to get past that BMW, so he'll be trying for all his might. But we've seen Darren Turner have to negotiate with these GT3 leaders already in the last few laps. So he didn't come out too well on that occasion, unfortunately, having to just lift off the gas and let them through. But at the moment, the top 3 coming into the Melbourne hairpin. Not quite nose to tail, but close enough.
Yeah, certainly. This has got potential to kick off at any moment, hasn't it? Darren Turner, by the way, now within a second of Jack Brown. 7/10 is the gap, but they're 6.3 then behind the Salkeld-Hetherington battle, and Turner needs to pass both of those as well. So it's not looking great, this, for Darren. He's taking a few tenths of a second a lap out of Jack Brown ahead of him, but that is not going to make it an easy overtake. Meanwhile, Alex Sims in the number 91 BMW. What a success story this has been as well. Century Motorsport really struggled in the early part of the season with their GT3 campaign, especially these last couple of rounds. Alex Sims coming in, he had Henry Dawes alongside him at Brands Hatch, Darren Leung here at Donington, and that has turned into a real race-winning package. There goes the Salkeld-Hetherington battle, and there you can see the distance back to Jack Brown and crucially Darren Turner, who's almost with Brown. But it's not just that one car that he's got to overtake, because there you can see, as it stands, he is 8.5 points shy of claiming the championship, and the next overtake would only be worth an extra 3 points. Down towards the hairpin they go. Josh Miller and Jamie Day now sort of outed, 156 points. They're 4 points adrift of Topham and Turner. They are another Aston Martin, though. Now, they've run out of a different team, Harry. Would they drop back to help Darren Turner? I don't think so, personally, but stranger things have happened.
Strange things have happened, but with 11 minutes just over on the clock, I don't think they will. We've got that Mustang as well, just running behind this 27 Aston Martin, but he just looks like he gets quite close to Darren Turner and then almost hits a brick wall a little bit, because that 90 BMW
black and white warning flag to car 4040. Final track limit warning, car 40.
Has driven superbly, but unfortunately for the number 40 in GT3, the Fox Motorsport McLaren, I believe that is, being given a black and white flag for their 4th track limit warning. So they've got to be careful. But look, actually, I say he's going to hit a brick wall. He hasn't. He's right up behind him. He's hit a BMW wall, and he's trying to find a way through.
Yeah, couldn't quite get the run there, but he did have the momentum up the hill, bit wide of the apex there for Jack Brown. 11 minutes to go, 11 minutes to try and salvage the championship for Darren Turner, but he needs to get past this BMW now. He cannot wait. Down the exhibition straight he will go in the slipstream of the Beamer. He's been catching by about half a second a lap or so, so he does have a pace advantage, but where does he have a pace advantage? Is it in the parts of the circuit where you do your overtaking?
Car 61 will be shown a black and white flag, 4th and final track limit warning, car 61.
So that's the Academy Motorsport Ford Mustang being shown the black and white flag there. Darren Turner, oh so close. Can he try the switchback coming through the Melbourne hairpin? He even cuts the corner nearly onto the grass, all 4 wheels on the black and white curbing, but the BMW holding firm out in front, moving all over the shop to try and stay in front as they head into the left-hander. It's a tough one between this BMW and Aston Martin at the moment.
67, black and white warning flag, final track limit warning.
Towards the final stage of this race, track limits warning is coming in thick and fast. My question is, how far in front is the next car if Darren Turner does get past the 90 BMW?
Too far. 8 seconds is the gap, and he's only got 10 minutes. So yeah, I mean, he would need some help, but the cars ahead are battling. They could start holding each other up. They could tangle. He's got to keep going. There's no point giving up. He's got to try and get past Jack Brown, which he is trying. He's quicker through the middle of the corners, isn't he? But the BMW just parked in all of the wrong places as far as Darren Turner is concerned. Almost gets the overlap there through Starkeys into the left-hand kink at Schwann's. Can he launch it up the inside, touring car style into McLean's? Darren Turner was a race winner, of course, in the British Touring Car Championship back in the day, but no, can't make the move work there. Into Coppice corner then. Over the curb, a tight line taken by Turner. This is where he really started to close in a lap ago. You can see the Aston Martin has more grip. It takes a tighter line off the corner, but just can't quite get the overlap. The BMW then works really well down the straights. So again, Aston Martin handling better, but the Beamer's got the poke down the straights.
I think Darren Turner is getting quite frustrated here. You can see how much time he makes up in the middle of the corners and just on the exit. And here, well, this is where he tried the move last time, and he's going to try for a late move down the inside into the Melbourne hairpin. No, he's not. not close enough on that occasion. I think for Darren Turner, he's going to try and have to be a bit more forceful and just barge his way down the inside and try something, because actually the car in front of this 90 BMW, the one he actually really needs to overtake, might well be too far in front. So does he risk it all and just try something for fear of losing nothing at all?
Well, got to give it a go. Here come the leaders again. This could be his opportunity. He lost out a bit the last time the overall leaders came through. Maybe this time his luck will be in. Up the inside goes Sims. He's going to turn straight across the nose of Jules Gounon. No, this is where it gets a bit dicey here for Gounon, because he's coming against people who are fighting for their own championship, and they don't want to just let him through. He does manage to avoid that little bit of contact that looked possible. Here comes Clutton. He gets past one, dives up the inside of the other. Really close quarter stuff there, but the Enduro Motorsport McLaren goes through. And just like that, the road is clear again ahead of the GT3 leaders, but we know there is more GT4 traffic on the horizon.
That's what Darren Turner needs to do, to get down the inside, isn't it? But he's so close to that BMW. He just closes right up, nose to tail, but that GT4 BMW just very good in a straight line, and now more traffic that they're going to have to get out of the way for. The GT367 McLaren behind them, but that should be a fairly simple move down the straight. But the Lamborghini, Sandy Mitchell, not too far away either.
Is there a gap on the inside of the chicane? Well, there was, but he was a bit too far back, Darren Turner. Much better run through the Fogarty S's, though, so he's got the run down into the Melbourne hairpin. But again, Jack Brown comes over to cover the inside line, makes that decisive defensive move, forces Turner to go the long way round. Sandy Mitchell now trying to pick his way through this as well. This is a brilliant defensive drive from Jack Brown. Everywhere Darren Turner wants to be, Brown is placing his BMW M4 right in that exact spot. And you're right, it's frustrating, Turner, but Turner is a clean racer. He's not going to get too physical here. He knows it's now a bit of a long shot for the championship anyway, and Jack Brown, unless he makes a mistake, I don't see Darren Turner getting through easily.
And picking up a little debris as well on that front radiator. It is worth saying, though, that yes, it's not going Turner and Topham's way in terms of the overall title, but they do look like they are on course to retain their Pro-Am title, but might not be of true consolation for them. But still, a long, hard 6.5 minutes left of this British GT Donington decider, the final race of the 2022 championship. And the battle up front, well, actually, it's just subsided ever so slightly. Alexander Sims now over a second in front of Jules Gounon, who's having to look more in his mirrors this time, because this man, the Enduro Motorsport car of Marcus Clutton, right on his tail in equal machinery, both McLaren 720S GT3 cars. And, well, not for Jules Gounon, he's in the Mercedes, but the two McLaren 720S GT3 cars right behind, nose to tail, trying to find a way through in these closing stages.
Yes, indeed, down into the hairpin. Marcus Clutton now becoming a bit of a danger to Gounon, isn't he? Wonder whether Jules might be tempted just to let him go here. Third place is still enough for the title. And Marcus Clutton is just gunning for a race win here, isn't he, really? Or at least to get one more step up the podium. Team Brit McLaren, by the way, has just been in and out of the pit lane. Not sure what that was all about. Bobby Trimley losing some ground as a result. But you ride on board with Marcus Clutton. We are almost into the final 5 minutes of the race and the final 5 minutes of the season. Up the inside of the R Racing Aston Martin they go, and Clutton is there. He's going to have a go at this, isn't he? Even if the championship's gone for him now, he'll want to get one over on Jules Gounon, because I made the point earlier on, Clutton is a really underrated pro driver. Beating Jules Gounon in a straight fight is going to really catch people's attentions.
You want to put that on your mantelpiece if you could print it off as well. GT4 leader and GT3 leader making their way one. The GT4's championship challenger right now, and currently leading the way, I should say, the number 42 Audi Sennan Fielding, just being overtaken there by the GT3 leader of Alexander Sims in the BMW, and Jules Gounon makes his way through as well in the Mercedes, and Marcus Clutton as well makes his way through on Sennan Fielding, currently in GT4 and looking set to take that title.
Yeah, Fielding's pulled away from Jamie Day now to the tune of nearly 4 seconds, so his second place in the class is secure, it would seem. Second place within GT3 is anything but, though. Jules Gounon has Marcus Clutton filling the mirrors of that Mercedes AMG, and Clutton thinks about the dive up the inside, decides against it, though. Jules Gounon turns across to the early apex. They both dive up the inside of the GT4 McLaren, and the 77 McLaren, which is rather undressing itself, isn't it? Lots of bits of bodywork and stickers flapping on the front of it, but it is looking quick. And they're both closing on Sims, I think, on this lap. That gap was 1.2 seconds, Sims to Gounon, and it comes down to 8/10. So it's very much still a three-way fight for the win.
And Darren Turner back in GT4, still behind that number 90 BMW as well, coming out of the Melbourne hairpin. Darren Turner needing to make up moves here. He's not doing enough quite at the moment. He's been stuck behind this BMW for, I've lost count, at least 20 minutes plus for Darren Turner, but he's oh so close. I don't think he's been this close. Coming out of the final corner, almost wheel to wheel, just falls behind a little bit, but that BMW has been placing his car in all the right places so far and continues to do so as they go into turn one.
It's coming off the corner as well, the BMW, and that is yielding a bit more straight line speed too, and it means that Turner's never quite close enough into the braking zone to have a lunge. If he could stay within half a car's length or so into Redgate, into the hairpins, then I think he would go for the move, but that just isn't possible, it would seem, at the moment. Through the old hairpin he goes, he closes right in onto the rear bumper of the M4, but through Starkey's corner, he is still sat in the wheel tracks of the BMW and stuck far too many positions down the order from where he needs to be. Again, Brown is not making friends with the apex there at McLean's, and this time I think Turner was up the inside, cut away to the GT3s, but did Turner have the overlap there, heading into Coppice corner? Here come the cars that he's chasing. That's Salkeld and Hetherington, who appears next. Well, they are side by side, I think. Yes, Turner to the outside, Brown to the inside. The Mustang is catching them as well. This is Darren Turner's one opportunity to go through, but he's surely not going to go around the outside. He tries it, but no, Jack Brown fends him off again.
Can he get a better run through the chicane? No, they've got to be careful because Moore and the Mustang is lurking behind and could cause trouble straight away coming into the Melbourne hairpin. Brown goes to the inside defensive line. They've got a GT3 Mercedes coming through, but is this Turner's chance? Yeah. Through the Melbourne hairpin he goes, and finally the Aston Martin is through on the BMW.
Excellent driving that from Turner, forced the mistake out of Brown, leant on him slightly on the exit of the corner, and he's gone through. I don't think it's going to be enough to realistically keep him in championship contention, though, because he is, well, let's give you the gap now to Hetherington, 11.5 seconds behind Salkeld and Hetherington, but at least he did finally get the better of Jack Brown. Right, we will have, I reckon, one more lap to go at the end of this one more lap in the season, and Marcus Clutton in behind Jules Gounon, fighting for second place in the race. How hard a fight is Gounon going to put up here? Through the chicane they come. There is Alex Sims, though, and he is only a lap and a bit away from claiming that car's first victory in the UK.
Brilliant drive from the number 91 team as well, and Alexander Sims at the wheels. Jules Gounon now the one who's most under pressure coming through the Melbourne hairpin. That Enduro Motorsport McLaren car with Marcus Clutton at the wheel desperately wants to nick off one final position in what we think might be in the last couple of laps of this British GT Donington decider.
Here we go then, one more lap to go, the last race of the season. It has more than delivered, this one. Donington Park has a habit of doing this, and this final round of 2022 has been no exception. Is there another twist in the tail? Confirmation there, by the way, of the GT4 points now that Darren Turner has gained one more place. Richard Williams and Sennan Fielding would be champions as it stands by 3.5 points over Matt Topham and Darren Turner, with Josh Miller and Jamie Day a little bit further back. They're out of it now. They are running a few positions ahead of Darren Turner, of course. As long as everyone gets to the flag without any dramas on the last lap, though, it will be the championship for the Audi squad. Looks as though Marcus Clutton, he's either had a go at Gounon or has developed a problem, because he's dropped back suddenly on this final lap. But Gounon now half a lap away from delivering the championship to Ian Loggie.
And Ian Loggie will be so desperately happy with that after it being taken away from him here in Donington Park a year ago, doing the business, and had to do it the hard way around as well, with just a few more corners left, and there he is watching on.
He looked
a bit surprised. We're on the final lap.
The race is over. Oh dear, I'm enjoying this. I don't want it to finish. I don't think he is enjoying it. I think he'll be a lot happier when the car does cross the line, which is going to happen in a few seconds. It has been a long time coming, this. Ian Loggie has been racing in British GT for an awful lot of years. He has never won the championship before, but as Alex Sims comes through to claim the race win, it's second place for Jules Gounon and a championship for Ian Loggie. Finally, Ian Loggie is the British GT champion, and finally he can let it all out and celebrate. Jules Gounon is very happy with that. The Nearies are in the garage as well. Everyone wants a piece of this. Ian Loggie is going to be a very, very popular British GT champion. Third place in the end for Marcus Clutton. He did drop back on that last lap. I'm not entirely sure why. In GT4 land, though, it looks as though it's going to be a championship for Steller Motorsport. Richard Williams and Sennan Fielding out of the last corner. What a drive that was from Sennan in the second stint. And second place in the class is the championship for Steller Motorsport, and Richard Williams is very, very happy with that one. By the way, there have been a couple more track limits penalties that are being converted to post-race time penalties for numbers 4 and 61. That's not particularly relevant, though, for the front runners in either of the classes. Darren Turner and Matt Topham come through. It's not quite going to be the overall GT4 championship, but they do retain their Pro-Am title that they took a year ago, and for their second season racing together in the championship, that is not bad going at all.
What a race.
You can say that again.
You couldn't stop for one moment there. We had it all, really. Championship contenders getting put out into the gravel, into the turn 1 right on lap 1. And it was this man, Ian Loggie, who had it all to do right from the very start. But after safety cars, after pit stops playing out and driver changes with this man, Jules Gounon, then getting into the car, well, that Mercedes lit up the timing screens and managed to move forward. He came oh so close to taking the win out on track too, but Alexander Sims, and a word for that 91 BMW squad, doing a sterling effort to take that car's first win in British GT.
And Darren Young, a British GT winner on his first attempt. That's it now, he's won. He can move on and do something else. I'm sure he won't. I think Darren's going to be back in the future. I certainly hope he will be, because he put in a really good drive as well in the first part of the race. There is the BMW, which, as I said, has had its issues earlier on this season, but the M4 GT3 has won what was a terrific final race of the season. Even if this wasn't a championship decider, even if we didn't have the points that were keeping us guessing right to the end, it was still an outstanding British GT race and a fitting way to round out this 30th anniversary season.
Donington always delivers, doesn't it? For GT racing. I don't know why I'm always surprised by that, but it always does deliver. We've seen in British GT time and time again, earlier this year, last year as well. It does deliver some very good racing across the classes. GT4 as well, in the mid-pack, not even always with the championship challenges, going absolutely nose to tail. Particularly, I think that number 90, the Century Motorsport BMW, Jack Brown and Will Burns, sensational defensive driving with that BMW to keep Darren Turner behind for so long in these final closing stages. So brilliant driving with a few little incidents earlier on, but once we settled down, it was very nice indeed.
Yeah, I mean, this car was in the gravel at turn 1. Jules Gounon bringing the Ram Racing Mercedes into Parc Fermé now. If that car had been stuck in the gravel, damaged suspension, puncture, any number of things that could have taken them out of the race and out of the championship altogether. You know, that one moment, what a flashpoint that was at the end of a long season of racing, over 13 hours of racing we've done to get to this point, and it could have all been over because of someone else's incident at the first corner of the race. But thankfully for Ian Loggie, that was not the case, and he provisionally has done enough for the championship. Alexander Sims then, bespectacled as always even, gets out of the BMW, looking as though he's not just won a British GT race for the first time in a number of years, and the first ever race win for the new M4 GT3 in the UK. Gets out, very calmly takes the gloves off. He's going to leave the celebrations, I think, to the car that's parked next to him. Jules Gounon gets out of the car, celebrates with a couple of team members. Ian Loggie will be down there very shortly to join in and indeed be the centre of those celebrations. But Jules Gounon putting in a typical Jules Gounon performance there. Yes, he took over the car in second place. Yes, he stayed in second place, didn't really do anything on the face of it, but the pressure he was under to deliver that for Loggie was immense.
It really was. A lot of pressure for him to deal with, trying to win somebody else's championship for them. I would not want that on my back, no matter how capable a racing driver I felt. At the end of the day, you're sort of up to the elements, really, in this kind of racing, certainly in close quarter racing as well. Little handshake there with Alexander Sims, as you can get a confirmation of the results.
Indeed, we will. The Donington Decider delivers another superb race and a superbly close finish as well, with Darren Young winning on his debut in British GT alongside Alexander Sims by half a second over Jules Gounon and the new champion, Ian Loggie. Third place, despite this spin at turn 1, despite a penalty, goes to Morgan Tillbrook and Marcus Clutton. Michael O'Brien and Simon Orange, after their slow pit stop, end up 4th, with Sandy Mitchell and Adam Balon struggling in the end to 5th position. A solid and under-the-radar performance there for Mia Flewitt and Ewan Hankey. They finished 6th, whilst Lewis Proctor and Andrew Howard on his return finished 7th and win the Silver Am class by about 10 seconds over Graham Davidson and Aaron Walker. shocker. Then it was Cottingham and Williamson. Their race just did not go to plan, did it? 9th in the end for the Mercedes, with Andre Borodin and Ed Peed rounding out the top 10 for Greystone GT. Fox Motorsport were next ahead of Team Rocket RJN, and then the Toyota Gazoo Racing UK car. We didn't really give it the love that we should have done in the second half of that race, but it is a win in GT4 for Tom Edgar and Jordan Collard, their first of the season. Second place in that class, though, enough for Sennan Fielding and Richard Williams to wrap up the GT4 title. You can see them at Topham and Darren Turner after losing that time with the penalty. Unfortunately, not doing enough to win the overall GT4 championship, but they do win the Pro-Am championship for the second year in a row. Right, we'll get to our championship celebration shortly, but for now, let's catch up with our race winners.
Well, this car has gone through the mill so far this season. Different driver lineup through the course of it. But Alex, same result for you, really. You know that you get a bit of time behind the wheel and you can do some good stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, to be honest, the car was handed over to me in the lead. So full credit to Darren and the team for doing the job they did. Yeah, the car's been on it. Yeah, since I've jumped in it, you know, I've barely made any changes. So the car's fast and team's doing a great job. And yeah, what a way to finish the season.
As Alex said, you handed in the keys to the car in a decent position, Darren. Well done.
Yeah, cheers.
Talk us through it from your point of view.
This is Darren's first weekend in GT3. We've got to remember that. Amazing.
Yeah. Thoughts on that? I mean,
yeah, it was hard. it was really hard work. Yeah.
Well done, both of you. Congratulations. Now we have got our championship winners there. Well done, both. Just there. Congratulations. Race winners here for the Donington Decider, but we have got Ian Loggie and Jules Gounon as well. Just step into this little moment here. I'm going to go to you first of all. Jules, because I'm going to come to you first because, Ian, I know that you probably have a fair bit to say. Jules, I mean, you've had a bit of time to work with Ian. He's had a shared seat really with you and Callum in the main. It's been a tough ask, but you got there.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's the teamwork of Callum, Ian and I that made the season Ian champion. He's been looking for it for a few years, I think, and as we said, arriving here, look, if you're meant to be champion, it's going to be destiny. And when I look at the race today, that was written destiny because we have been very, very lucky. Few times, good pit stop, and then I was just not chilling, but staying behind the BMW of Alexander and trying to cover the McLaren behind. And then I just had to drive it, looking at the race logic, looking at the time, and thinking Ian eating all his name in the garage, but everything was under control, so all good.
I mean, the pit stop release was very exciting for us to watch as well. Ian, I mean, you tried to really mix it up for us, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I never thought it was going to turn out like that after being in the gravel at turn one. It's one of these things. I thought I got a decent start and I was going to make up some places. Next thing you're in the gravel and we're trying to work from the back, and then the embarrassing spin. So, but we just ground away, got it together, made up some places. Amazing pit stop. That was just absolutely fantastic. And we got out in front of the Lambo and obviously the McLaren, and then Jules done exactly what he's great at, just raced along with Alexander Sims, and both had great pace. It was a proper race at the end.
Yeah, it was a proper race. You've come close before, you've finally done it. Congratulations, Ian Loggie. You're the GT3 champion 2022. Well done.
And a very popular one at that, Ian Loggie. It's been quite the season for him, but he comes out on top. Look at that, a very, very handsome margin in the end. Didn't look that way, did it a couple of hours ago. Adam Balon and Sandy Mitchell second, and they just hang on to that second place. That brilliant effort by Clutton and Tillbrook gives them third in the championship, but had they got ahead of Gounon in that one, it might well have given them second. Fourth place in the points for James Cottingham and Lewis Williamson, with Jules Gounon actually breaking into the top 5 on his own, having only done about half the rounds. Alex Malikan and James Dorlin missed the last round, but they are 6th in points, ahead of Fox Motorsport in 7th position. Right then, down to Bryn once again in Parc Ferme.
Yes, race winners indeed in GT4. You had to work pretty hard for that one, it seemed, from the outside. Tell us a bit about it.
Yeah, it may have looked easy from the TV screens, but it definitely wasn't. Thankfully, Tom did the majority of the hard work for me in the first stint. There was a little bit of an issue in our pit stop. We couldn't quite get out. There was a GT3 car ahead, so the gap that we did develop, I had to come back past the Aston, and then it was just a matter of head down, nice and consistent, and bring it back in one piece.
And conscious when you're racing that you've got a championship contender right by your side, but Tom, you raced a really nice, clean race.
Well, I always saw that as an advantage in my favour. I feel like he has everything to lose, and I'm just there, and I could really gone for the win, and thankfully everything ran smoothly. I didn't want to be a reason someone lost the championship, and thankfully it all turned out well.
Well, listen, you've won the race. Congratulations. I'd love to spend more time talking to you, but we've got to speak to the champions now. Well done to both. I don't want to burst your bubble here, but let's stay with our champions, and Sennan Fielding and Richard coming in as well. Sennan, let's grab you first while Richard's here. I mean, you two have worked really hard over the last few years together, and to finally do this race had everything, looking at Darren, looking at Jamie Day. I mean, what was going on there? What was going through your mind?
To be fair, I just wanted to enjoy today. I thought we was on the back foot with the success penalties. We knew it was going to be a challenge. But, yeah, I think a little bit of lady luck. Richard did the best first stint ever. He made my life so much easier, but like I say, it's just been so enjoyable, and for me and to win it with this team, and Richard as my teammate, means more than anything. Like, these guys deserve it. They've worked so hard, and to see the progress over the last few years has been unbelievable. But yeah, it's always sad when it comes to the end of the year, because having a teammate like Richard is just amazing. So yeah, it's happy but sad it's the end of the year now.
Well, let's finish on a high. Let's go to Richard then, because I said to you at one point, you're 1 point behind, and then he overtook. So all of a sudden, it looked rosy for you.
I don't think it was as easy or rosy as you say it was, mate. But it was, yeah, you know, I mean, it's so surreal at the moment that we've actually kind of wrapped up all 3 championships. So the main one, the team one, and the silver championship. But it was horrible watching. I've got to be honest, it was absolutely horrible. So you know, but we've done it. So
horrible watching, but you have done it. You are the GT4 champions 2022. Congratulations both.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, massive congratulations to Sennan Fielding and Richard Williams. Confirmation that they are the champions. Look at that, 5.5 points. That is it over Darren Turner and Matt Topham, who are your Pro-Am champions. Jamie Day and Josh Miller in the end slipping out of contention there as they fell down to 3rd place in the race. They are 3rd in the points. Tom Edgar there getting 4th in the championship after his class win. Jordan Collard moving up to 5th, but they didn't do all of the races together, hence why there's a slight points difference, with Jack Brown and the reigning champ Will Burns 6th place in the championship at the end of the 2022 season. Well, the Donington decider delivered as always. At the start, Richard Neary led from pole position, but it was drama immediately for 3 of our title contenders. Contact there for Morgan Tillbrook, spun him around, and both Adam Balon and the championship leader Ian Loggie were off into the gravel. Miraculously, they were all able to continue, although Tillbrook was handed a drive-through penalty for the contact that triggered the melee at turn 1. After that, we thought the race's drama was done for. Ian Loggie was well down the order, mired amongst the GT4 field. He just about got himself to the front of that GT4 pack when he looped it coming out of the final corner. A half spin into the pit lane entry saw all of his hard work undone. Then there was contact. The Greystone McLaren tapped into a spin by the paddock one, and then made secondary contact that put a lot of debris on the road and took both cars out of contention. The 2 Seas Motorsport car of James Cottingham, though, was putting in a brilliant drive from 12th on the grid to the top 5 in the first few laps, but this off put a Pirelli banner over the radiator and forced him into the pit lane. Then drama for Richard Neary from the lead. The car lost drive coming out of Redgate. He pulled off the road and for the 2nd race in a row was forced to retire from the race lead. Then came the pit window. In came the Steller Motorsport Audi, which was right in the thick of the GT4 Championship battle, and immediately the drama continued. Contact from Marcus Clutton onto the back of the Sandy Mitchell Lamborghini caused bodywork to rub aggressively on the rear tyre of the Lambo. Thankfully, though, that sorted itself out. This was the moment that Sennan Fielding overtook the R-Racing Aston Martin for 2nd place in GT4, giving them a good enough position to wrap up the GT4 Championship. Richard Williams could hardly watch. Meanwhile, Alex Sims won the first race in the UK for the new BMW GT3 car, but it was Jules Gounon who handed a championship in GT3 to Ian Loggie.